Tonight, a money-making Ponzi scheme leads to murder from the last person you'd ever imagine.
Indeed, David. I just came back from reporting on this story. So many people left heartbroken and mystified. An all-new 2020 begins right now. Tonight, the trial so many have been talking about, with details you haven't heard until now.
It was just greed after that.
What is this weird nightmare that's
visited upon this couple? She's sick and now he's dying. For him to just go from being fine to suddenly comatose.
What happened? What happened?
They were a great couple. They loved each other. They always wanted to be together.
Two people with no background in federal contracting. Suddenly they're going to be arms dealers for the federal government.
They were trusted in the community. A lot of the investors were family and close friends.
Had Michael expressed any doubts about the business?
The Cochran business model seemed to be built on defrauding their friends and family.
The investigators look at you and say, there were never any contracts, there were never any bids, it doesn't exist.
When people found out, they want answers.
I mean, it was all anyone could talk about.
Your friend, 38 years old, is gone. Behind all the raw beauty in the untamed West Virginia mountainside are deep-rooted secrets, lies, and betrayal, and a small, close-knit community is upended.
I was just calling to see if you knew when everything surrounding the investigation is going to be over.
I don't understand what you mean by the investigation.
They're asking people very personal questions about me and my husband's relationship. But I just can't keep living this way.
And at the center of all that unraveling is this couple, the Cochrans.
It was on a Tuesday night on December the 23rd, 1980, 10:36 p.m. Michael Brandon Cochran was born into the world.
Tell me about Michael as a boy.
He was a good kid. He always minded me. You know, Eddie came into his life when he was 8 years old.
When I met Michael, he had like a rat tail haircut and with the spiked hair. We just kind of developed a good, warm relationship.
What about sports, though? Ed, he was really into sports.
Oh, yeah. He was playing like the pee-wee baseball. You could just tell right then, he just took to it and was just like a natural.
Michael Brandon was always playing baseball, basketball, football. He lifted weights as a hobby. He had a weight bench in his room. He got his first Sandfield barbell set around 10 or 11 years old. And he would just go in there and turn his music up loud and just start working out. He just loved being healthy. Of course, he loved the muscles. He loved the way it made him feel. In high school, they started having like powerlifting competitions. And Michael, he got first place. We were really proud of him.
At age 17, Michael meets a girl named Natalie Jessup, also 17, during a trip to the mall. It will change his life forever.
We had to go out to the sporting goods place one day, and there she was working behind the counter. And she was flirting with him really bad, you could tell that. And then the next thing I know, they were dating.
She seemed to be a relatively driven student in school. She was passionate about what she did. She loved her family.
After high school, both Michael and Natalie head off to West Virginia University, where he studies computers and she studies to be a pharmacist. The two freshmen had just started their first semester at WVU when Michael's mom, Donna, gets a call from Natalie.
They got engaged in November of 1999. And when Michael got on the phone, I just said, Michael Brandon, what in the world are you doing?
Were you happy for him to be marrying Natalie?
I wanted them to wait. He had just graduated high school like maybe 5 months before. And I wanted him to just, focus on his schooling. And then 6 months later, they were married.
The couple are the picture of happiness in their wedding photo. After graduation, they later have 2 children. And after 6 years of marriage, they settled in Daniels, West Virginia, here in this colonial home.
It's a beautiful home on almost 4 acres of flat land. Michael renovated that house. He just completely gutted it and remodeled it from top to bottom.
As the years went on, did they have a happy marriage?
As far as I know, they had a happy marriage.
Yeah, you know, they're starting their life now, been starting their family. You know, they've got good jobs.
Natalie was working as a pharmacist, and Michael was in IT.
Yes, information technology. Yeah, it was like running cable wire, coaxial cable, and things like that.
Life in West Virginia can kind of be summed up as like, here people really focus on work, family, and their faith.
How was Michael as a dad? He was a proud dad. He doted on his kids and was a good provider, was involved with them, the school activities and stuff.
The couple gets involved in their community.
He was a football coach and he was a baseball coach.
And wherever Michael was, you'd find Natalie working the sidelines.
She was a sports socialite. When Michael was the coach, she was the one you got all the information from. She was the one that ordered the uniforms and got your sizes.
He loved sports, and that was probably our biggest connection. Our family would see their family at games, and that's really how it got started, is just loving sports and hanging out.
Are there stories that you remember that when you really do think back to you all as couples, it kind of warms your heart that you remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mike and I, we won a lot of championships together, coaching our kids.
Chris and Jennifer Davis bonded with the Cochrans over Little League, their young families, and church. They even went on vacations together. Chris, a lawyer, was hired by Michael for a legal matter, and the two became friends. What was it that made them sort of fit into your world?
It was really the family aspect. They were a great couple. They loved each other. They always wanted to be together. We gravitate toward friends who are always together and love their spouses, because we're always together.
So you were really close?
Yes, we were very close.
So at some point then you discover that one of your sons has diabetes.
Initially it's very grim because it's, hey, this is what this is. It's never going to change, and this is what it's going to require.
Coincidentally, Natalie happened to specialize in diabetes management. How helpful was that for you in the beginning?
Tremendous.
Tremendous.
She was amazing. Like, she just gave us all the information we needed, because you learn as you go.
So she understood how insulin could affect the body.
1,000%.
Then, seemingly out of the blue, the Cochrans make a career change and open a new business. So they seem to be doing well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're doing very well.
I invested and I spent $256,000.
And this new venture will lead them straight to the CIA.
Everybody is very involved with their kids around here, into sports, and that's where parents usually hang out, at school sporting events.
Just like his dad, Michael Cochran's son loves sports, especially baseball. And it's a family affair. With Michael coaching local youth sports leagues, Natalie becomes treasurer of the middle school baseball program.
She was heavily involved in that because Mike was a coach. They were involved in tons of leagues and different things.
So you were all involved as friends in the sports world with your children?
Yes, that's correct.
We met the Cochrans because I had put my son into the draft for the Little League Baseball.
Toni McCall met Michael and Natalie after her husband died of leukemia, leaving her a single mom to 3 children.
Michael very much took on a father figure role, especially for Cash. He was so good to him. He took him everywhere. They went fishing. They went to practices. It was a dream come true to have that father figure when you don't have one for your kids and you want one.
The Cochrans are a busy couple, both on and off the field. They open a business that is supposed to provide supplies to the federal government. It's called Tactical Solutions Group, or TSG, and they soon begin looking for big investors to help them pay the upfront money that is sometimes needed for government contracts. And to everybody's surprise, Natalie up and quits her job as a pharmacist, jumping into the new business completely.
Great, you know, I mean, if you can quit your job as a pharmacist, like, oh, wow.
By all accounts, the new business appears to be flourishing.
They were building onto their house, and they put up a new fence. Mike got a car.
So they seem to be doing well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're doing very well.
Natalie tells friends they were inspired by that movie War Dogs, the one about two men with no experience in the defense industry who become arms dealers to the U.S. military and get in way over their heads.
They called guys like us war dogs, bottom feeders who make money off of war without ever stepping foot on the battlefield.
When she told me that we're going to make all of our employees watch War Dogs as like an onboarding video, I said, well, you do realize that the guys went to jail, right?
It might surprise people to know that any civilian can seek a government contract. All you have to do is register, and then you can start bidding. It can be a small business, an individual, a nonprofit agreeing to provide goods or services to the government at a specific rate at an agreed upon time.
The process is you discover the contract, you bid on the contract.
And if you're chosen, suddenly you're in business with the U.S. government.
The Cochran's website for their business, TSG, boasts impressive clientele from within the government, including the Department of Defense, FEMA, Homeland Security, and the CIA.
Tactical Solutions Group was supposed to be a whole goods seller, so they could sell healthcare equipment, masks, firearms, and various things like that.
Michael Cochran would spend hours sifting through all of these government contracts, and he would tell Natalie what he'd found. She'd go to the investors and say, Michael found the most incredible investment.
What did you know about what this business was all about?
They got this niche, a woman-owned small business. The idea of the federal government will pay $50 for a $10 hammer. You just got to be able to get in there and get the contracts and fight with the big guys.
And all the couple needs now is a little startup cash.
Most of their investors were friends, family, people that they knew.
We invested $245,360.69. That was our retirement savings.
Michael's mom, Donna, remembers the first time Natalie approached her about investing in the family business. Do you remember what she said?
Yeah, she asked us if we wanted to do the government contract. She said that she wanted to help us out, you know, when we got ready to retire.
At what point did you decide that maybe this was something you might be interested in getting involved in?
About a month later, she told me that she was doing it for her parents, that they'd made $60,000 in 5 months. And so we thought, well, you know, maybe we'll give it a try.
That's a pretty good return.
Yes, ma'am, it sure is.
Donna Bolt says her daughter-in-law claimed she could get her initial investment back with profit, sometimes in as little as 10 days. So when they come to you for a potential investment, what's your initial thought?
Well, my initial thought was, sure.
The Cochran's close friends, Chris and Jennifer Davis, say the couple approached them after church saying they needed some major cash to fulfill a contract for dental labs, saying if they didn't get the money right away, they'd lose the entire contract.
But it was more than just, hey, do you want to invest? There were supposed to be dental facilities on military bases. That's why we couldn't see any of the documents. Because she knew I was going to ask that. I was like, well, what's the you know, well, you can't see it, you don't have authorization. We can't do that because it's the Department of Defense. And so we were like, sure, yeah, man, we'll help out.
How much were you investing?
$511,000.
When Chris Davis hears who's investing, he says it seems like a safe opportunity.
I trusted all those names and people in the community.
So if they were involved, it must be sound and good.
Absolutely. The names that were lining up, it fit. Like, okay, these people aren't going to do anything crazy.
Tony McCall says the circle of trust was how she too decides to invest.
She had pulled someone in that I was close to and had been getting them to do contracts.
She says that person calls one day with an opportunity for the two of them to go in on a contract, but they've got to do it immediately.
It pays out in 45 days, but you have to do it right now. Like eBay, she bids at the very last minute so that nobody can go in and bid over top of her. But you have to tell me right now. And so I did it. I spent $256,000.
By all accounts, it seemed to be a safe bet. The Cochrans appear to be doing well.
I had seen the money that they were spending.
They had multiple vehicles, they had motorcycles, they were buying trips overseas.
The Cochrans are living the high life, but then suddenly the youth sports league is broke.
This ain't good. I really felt in my heart that something was going on.
You don't have anything, it's all spent.
Could something be afoul at the Little League? In the small community of Beckley, West Virginia, after just a year, Natalie and Michael Cochran's business is doing very well. And family and friends noticed the couple seemed to be too.
It appeared that Natalie and Michael were quite wealthy, and they were living like they were.
They had multiple vehicles, they had motorcycles, they were buying trips overseas to Paris, they went to Hawaii.
You know, we just thought it was wonderful. We just thought they were doing so good that we were so proud of them.
I mean, they had 3 homes, a pickup truck, motorcycles, a nice antique car.
Him and Natalie drove up in a 1965 Shelby Cobra. It was a kit car. It was just something that they bought, and we were just very happy. We even took a ride in it.
They were living much higher than the majority of people in Beckley, West Virginia.
Did you see a difference in how their lives seem to be changing?
Oh, yeah.
You were on vacation together. What kind of vacations did you take?
We did beach vacations, and then we went to New York City a couple of times with them.
Yeah.
And so the typical sightseeing, shopping.
Everybody got along?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It was great.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
From the outside, it appeared that a lot of the spending was on Michael's side.
This was wealth that he had not experienced before, so he wanted to take advantage of it. Some of the things that Michael Cochran purchased in this period were recreational vehicles, an airplane hangar. He had ambitions and endeavors to open up an aviation branch to this business.
He really, really wanted to fly, and he loved that type of stuff. He was working on his pilot's license. Now, he wanted to fly helicopters.
They were a great couple to get that kind of money. They were doing things for people, and I mean good things.
Michael especially was doing a lot of charity work. He donated a weight room to a local middle school. When he found out his youth pastor was going to be homeless for a while, he actually purchased a property for him to live in.
Natalie even gets involved with local organizations and charities.
She volunteered, wanted to do this and wanted to do that.
She was helping us with juvenile diabetes research, all the fundraisers for that. And then we did a 5K run. She was good at that. She would organize it, get sponsors, get the word out.
One time she and Mike were at the house, and she told me that they were going to buy a town in Africa because that was going to be their mission, you know, pay for everyone's home and build homes.
Natalie also helps raise money for the middle school baseball league. Their friend Chris is board president.
We had a fundraiser, and from the fundraiser, we believe we raised a little over $15,000. It was a big deal.
As treasurer of the Little League, Natalie manages the bank account, but members get suspicious when the money all but disappears. But you knew there was a big chunk of money in there.
Yes, there should have been over $20,000 in there, absolutely.
Any idea of how it was drained like that?
Nobody knew it was missing until we were told it's missing.
The league brings in a private investigator to look into where the money's gone.
And I talked to the board and I explained to them, you don't have anything but $31 in a frozen bank account. There's no records of anything as to where this money went. It's all spent.
There was an audit that was done. There were purchases made that weren't approved by the league.
There was purchases to TJ Maxx, purchases to Olive Garden, and then when I started adding it up, I'm like, $32,000 in one night you raise for 2 sports teams, and it all just disappears. I mean, there's no way to rectify that.
Questions are now swirling over the missing money and if Natalie could be involved. And when some investors with the Cochran's business get wind of it, they're getting concerned about the money they've been promised. As time is going on and you're not hearing anything, are you starting to panic at all?
We'd ask. We'd say, Natalie, we need our money. I said, our car's gonna break down. We need the money back. She would say, it's coming, I promise. And then she would send me text messages and say, your money is going to be deposited in your bank account within the next 24 hours. And we'd wait, and it was never there.
You didn't get anything?
No.
Donna says that any communication she had about the couple's business was typically with Natalie, not her son.
Every time that I received any kind of a message, it was a text message from Natalie. It was she and I that was constantly going back and forth with contracts.
Meantime, Natalie continues to portray the business as extremely successful.
From the outside looking in, I would have probably been like pretty impressed. Thought, man, right here in Raleigh County, West Virginia, these people are knocking it out of the park.
One investor says it's astonishing how much money Natalie says she's pulling in.
She did give me a number at the time. This was like $343 million we're going to have to put in this bank. That was a little hard to believe.
Natalie and Michael tell a local bank their business is worth more than $500 million when they apply for a $100,000 loan.
Was her business worth $500 million? No, absolutely not.
It turns out the Cochran's business is not what it appears to be.
I said, in pure West Virginian, this ain't good. I really felt in my heart something was going on.
The fundamental problem is that it was all a lie.
And when secrets come to light, it's far worse than anyone could have imagined.
There is nothing wrong with doing well and having a successful business.
The Cochrans and their business, Tactical Solutions Group, put themselves out to be legitimate government contractors who were bidding on legitimate government contracts.
She always made all of them look like they were good investments.
The problem is there never was any legitimate income flowing from government contracts. All the money and cash flow is coming from investors.
There were no contracts. There were never any contracts. There were never any bids. It doesn't exist.
The businesses didn't exist at all, really, legitimately.
They existed on paper.
It was clear that it was a Ponzi scheme.
When it comes to a Ponzi scheme, there's no real business. There's no money being generated. Early investors get paid by new investor money, like shifting poker chips from one pile to another. And as long as the money's coming in from new investors, the Ponzi scheme can continue.
If you're just taking one investor's money and giving it to another investor as if it's a legitimate return on their investment, that's a fraud.
I said, no, these are friends of mine. I've seen what they've done in the community.
Successful Ponzi schemes almost always rely on trust, and you often find that people start very close to home.
The Cochran business model seemed to be built on defrauding their friends and family. Many of them knew them their entire lives. and they had no reason to not trust them.
It would hurt a lot less for this to have been someone that I didn't know that had scammed me out of money. It would hurt a lot less. I was already wounded from my husband passing away, and my kids the same.
These were friends, neighbors, and family members who were defrauded, and the question is whether Michael knew about it.
Michael was not the brains of the couple. He was a great guy, but Natalie was the brains of the operation. And Michael would look for contracts on the government website, and then he would give them to Natalie, and she would make the bid.
Had Michael expressed any concerns, any doubts about the business to you?
Not about the business. He was stressed about the government. He did not understand why the government will not give them their money, and he just couldn't figure it out. How can they do this?
But of course, the federal government didn't owe the Cochrans any money because they'd never conducted any business with them.
Michael Cochran was asking her questions very similar to the questions being asked by the investors who were trying to get their money back.
She was giving the same excuses to Michael that she was giving to the investors.
Natalie would tell me, we're being audited, there's a government shutdown. There was always some excuse with her.
The lives and paychecks of some 800,000 federal workers hanging in the balance.
Around Christmas time in 2018, there was a government shutdown, and it lasted until January 25th of the following year.
Day 32 of the government shutdown, now beginning its second month. We have never seen this.
Natalie used this whole government shutdown to her advantage. Her investors were coming and saying, we want our money. We'd like to pull it out. And she would say, well, I can't. The government is shut down. There's no way to get access to your money. They're not paying anybody.
She had a never-ending list of reasons that they were not seeing their returns.
When she could no longer blame the federal government for the delays, she turned to, I guess, more of the emotional side of, saying that she had cancer.
We're feeling bad for her. She even told us that she had cancer, that she wasn't going to do anything about it, that she was going to let God take care of it. And if he took her on, then that would be fine. And I just got so distraught and emotional, and I kept telling her she needed to fight, not to give up.
She said she was in stage 3. Her and Mike were talking about not going through chemo and radiation and just living what life she has left.
Was that devastating?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
We were all pretty devastated, to the point we all get the paperwork to go get our bone marrow tested to see if there was any way we could help her.
Remember, Toni McCall had lost her husband to leukemia. She was skeptical about Natalie's claim of having cancer.
I believe that Natalie used the leukemia to stall on having any payments. I knew she didn't have stage 3 leukemia because it's not in stages, it's in types. Everything pointed to the fact that she did not have it. She had told us that she was losing her hair from the chemo she was taking, and she flips her hair over and she has the perfect dime-sized circle where she has shaved a spot in her hair. And if you lose your hair from chemo, you don't see 5 o'clock shadow. What woman would shave a spot on their head to say, look, I'm losing my hair? And so I absolutely knew at that point that she would do anything to cover up and to lie.
Then early one morning, Michael and Natalie are set to take a private plane to Virginia for a scheduled bank meeting, but they never make that flight.
I just kept asking her, what happened? What happened?
On the morning of February 6th, the plan was that the Cochrans, Michael and Natalie, were going to fly to Virginia to visit the Bank of America there.
She had text messages going with me and Jennifer.
So the morning of February 6th, they were going to go take a flight.
She said she was too sick to fly. She had the flu and the norovirus, and it hit her so hard because of her cancer. She had gone to the doctor, and they put her on such a high dose of steroids that her blood sugar was elevated. She had asked to borrow a vial of insulin.
So she needed a bottle of your son's insulin?
Yes. And I told her that Chris was getting ready to leave the house, that he could drop it off for her.
Chris drops the insulin around 10:30 that morning. Jennifer and Chris receive a photo about 2 hours later, around 12:30, of Michael laying unconscious in the Cochran's kitchen floor.
Michael was laying in the fetal position in the floor in his kitchen.
So she sends a photo out of him on the floor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my reaction in the text was, is he okay? What's going on? He's fine. The contractors are here, putting him on the couch. Okay.
Michael is moved from the floor to the couch. People start coming into the home saying, hey, you should probably take him to the hospital.
Throughout the day, some of the couple's friends come to the house while others text Natalie, worried about Michael.
Every time we would check on him, we would get, he's fine.
He's going to sleep it
He's
off.
going to sleep, he's sleeping it off.
She said that he was sleeping it off on the couch.
The wording of the messages were as if she was communicating with him. He won't go to the hospital. Oh.
He won't go to the hospital?
Yes, when she says he won't go to the hospital, in my mind, I'm thinking that he's told her, I'm not going to go to the hospital.
Almost unilaterally, all of Natalie's friends were urging her to take Michael to the hospital, and Michael needed medical attention.
And so you're looking at close to 8 hours that this man, that he was incapacitated. He was unconscious, he was on the couch, and pretty much unresponsive.
I get a message at around 6:30. I'm at Gavin's basketball game. And the message says, can you come by after the game?
Chris Davis shows up and insists that they take Michael to the hospital, and they load Michael in the car.
I knew something was wrong. He's just totally unresponsive. I was like, well, I said, he's gotta go to the hospital.
He's been unconscious for 7-8 hours. Like, we're getting him to the hospital.
Michael got to the ER at Raleigh General Hospital. His blood glucose was at 21. He was critical, and he was intubated.
A blood glucose level of 21 would be extremely low, dangerously low, and basically result likely in some sort of massive cognitive dysfunction, coma, seizure, or even death.
Michael's parents are at home that night with no idea of their son's condition.
We came home from church, watched a little TV. I was in the bed. Eddie brought me my phone. He said, you got a text message from Natalie. It's 10:30 at night.
Concerned by such a late night text, Michael's mom, Donna, checks Natalie's message.
She sent me a picture. There's Michael Brandon in the bed, and he's on the ventilator, unconscious, unresponsive.
The Davises also received texts from Natalie showing Michael in the hospital.
I just kept asking her on text message, what happened? What happened?
Doctors determined that Michael is suffering from cerebral edema.
Cerebral edema is the medical term for swelling in the brain. We usually think about cerebral edema in the setting of a big bleed or a traumatic event.
Michael Brandon, he was fighting to breathe. He was trying his best to live.
Michael spends at least 4.5 days in a hospital in Charleston.
She makes this decision, she's going to take him off the ventilator and everything.
What are you thinking at that point, Jennifer?
I think there's total shock. I just remember thinking, this isn't happening. This can't be real.
Yeah,
like,
this was
so tragic.
What is this weird nightmare that just, my goodness.
That's visited upon this couple.
Yeah.
She's sick and now he's dying.
Like, Those poor kids. My goodness, those poor, like, this is awful. It was awful.
For 5 days, he received medical treatment. He was in a coma, never regained consciousness, and passed away on February the 11th at the hospice house in Beckley.
Your friend, 38 years old, within days, is gone.
It was awful. It was tragic.
It's just sad, you know. We went to the funeral. It just all seems surreal. Everything's just kind of like you're like in this fog, you know. Just unimaginable.
After Mike had passed, Natalie called me one day and said that I've created this scholarship in his memory.
Natalie starts a scholarship called the Coach Michael Cochran Legacy Scholarship. It appeared that Natalie was selecting people who were family members. There were also people that Michael coached.
Tony McCall's son is one of those high school students that Natalie had offered a 4-year college scholarship to.
These scholarships, they're the kind that kids dream of.
Natalie, newly widowed, continues running her businesses. But then 4 months after her husband's death, she suddenly decides to sell nearly half of Tactical Solutions Group for $4 million.
She had negotiated to sell that business with a buyer, offering to buy a 49% interest of her business. So this buyer had wired her $50,000 as an earnest deposit on his buy-in to this business.
But before the deal can go through, police show up at the Cochran home with a search warrant.
She said, oh, they came here and they took everything.
When they raided her house that day in June, that was huge. I mean, it was all anyone could talk about.
When police search the Cochran home, they find something unexpected that could explain Michael's sudden death.
A man, 38 years old, what a fitness guru he was, to suddenly die in the midst of financial crimes occurring. I mean, that's pretty suspicious.
So they decide to exhume Michael Cochran's body. Does the big con turn into an even bigger crime?
At first, this was just a Ponzi scheme investigation.
Tonight, all eyes on the headline-making court case that just wrapped.
The interest in this case was huge.
Police are investigating the death of Michael Cochran.
To suddenly die in the midst of allegations of financial crimes, that's pretty suspicious.
So you think he was duped as well?
100% I believe that.
The defense counsel made it clear they were living this lavish lifestyle. So how couldn't he have known that this was a Ponzi scheme?
Natalie weaved such a web of lies, keeping us all drinking the Kool-Aid.
They open the fridge, they find the vial of insulin.
That was huge.
Did anybody take insulin in the house?
No. I said, insulin, what are you doing with the insulin in the refrigerator?
Prosecutors called that the murder weapon.
What keeps Gavin alive, she used to take life.
Just in shock. I was still in shock.
The defense can say, maybe he died of something else.
I know that he took steroids and he took many other supplements.
He was a ticking bomb.
Your daughter-in-law is being accused of killing your son.
I mean, how do you kill somebody that you're supposed to love?
It's been 7 months since 38-year-old Michael Cochran's death, and Private Eye James Quisenberry sends an employee on an undercover mission to Michael's wife Natalie's garage.
I just seen the sign and figured I'd come out this way.
Oh.
She was selling a bunch of things and items at her house.
This is security camera cable, and then this is Ethernet cable.
He's there to secretly get a closer look.
The question was still out there of whether she was sitting on a pile of money, all these different questions.
You don't want to sell the rest of anything else?
Not really. I'm going to keep those for my son. My husband passed away, so my dad helped me go through it, and we kept things that my son might use when he grows up. So.
Okay.
Had there been something there that shouldn't have been there, would have turned it over to law enforcement. She's all smiles and looking at him and trying to be polite, and as soon as he turns his back, she changes her look, like her whole demeanor changes.
In the months since Michael Cochran's death, authorities have started to take a hard look at the Cochrans' so-called businesses.
I received a phone call from a trooper who had spoke with a local business person who had purchased some firearms from the Cochrans, and he had a problem with getting his firearms delivered or the money returned, and he was looking for help in resolving that matter. He had been solicited to be an investor in contracts. He never did it because the information he was receiving from Natalie Cochran on these investment solicitations didn't make sense to him.
I was like, yes, we definitely need to take a look at this.
So that disgruntled customer then connected investigators with someone who said he had invested with Natalie Cochran.
The problem that he was encountering was he kept getting excuse after excuse after excuse with getting his money returned.
Bob was going through the records as they were coming in, and so, you know, there's a ton of information there to go through. And Bob's looking at it, we're sitting there one day, and he goes, I'll be damned. He said, it's a damn Ponzi scheme.
As they dig in, they take notice of the investigation into that Little League account. Remember, board members had been suspicious of Natalie after money had gone missing.
The Shady Spring Little League bank account is one of the many accounts she used to facilitate her Ponzi scheme.
Natalie would deposit from their company and then sift it back out in various different ways.
Natalie called the alleged financial crimes bogus, and ultimately authorities decided not to charge her with anything related to the Little League.
The league never recouped any money. It was all just lost.
It's late into the summer, and those generous Michael Cochran legacy scholarships, which Natalie had promised students, are now supposed to be paid out.
There were 8 people in total. They are full-ride scholarships for up to 8 years.
Tony McCall's son was given one of those college scholarships.
There was no money. It was a fake scholarship. Natalie weaved such a web of lies. They were bizarre like that. It was still keeping us all in the flock.
Natalie Cochran has insisted the scholarships would have been paid if her assets hadn't eventually been frozen by the government. But investigators had a different view.
When she created these, we saw that as an attempt to dispel rumors. Rumors were circulating that her business was being looked at, that she didn't have this wealth and this money.
We had pretty clearly identified at least, and I may be under at least 10 known victims of the Ponzi scheme.
The most obvious red flag at the time was that nobody was getting any money back.
We had more than enough evidence and documentation to proceed with indictment.
So she's arrested.
Yes.
What did you think of that?
We were glad. When she was arrested, she was wearing the Tailgate Socialite t-shirt. That was the true Natalie right there.
Natalie Cochran faces 26 charges related to the fraud. She pleads not guilty, but her investors are deeply distraught over the hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost money.
I spent $256,000.
$511,000.
Almost $250,000 over the course of 2.5 years. We loved her and we believed her. Everything she told us, we believed everything she said to us.
Chris Davis says he too was taken in by his trust in Natalie and by the impressive paperwork she supplied.
It looks legitimate. I mean, there are a lot of companies and there are a lot of entities here. Why would she do this?
I don't know if it was the greed or the position or status.
Reaching a deal with prosecutors, Natalie pled guilty to 2 counts, an unlawful monetary transaction and wire fraud.
And then she went off to prison for 11 years for fraud.
She did. May 1st of 2021 is when she finally went into the prison at Hazleton.
The court also ordered her to pay back $2.5 million to the investors she fleeced. But with little income coming in, it will likely be a very long process.
Did you feel that was fair, that was right?
The judge said, if I could give you more, I would. He acknowledged the fact that the lawyers had reached this plea agreement and had capped what he could have done to her. So no, at that moment, I didn't believe it was fair. And just as I told the judge, there's 2.5 million reasons why it wasn't fair.
But this isn't over yet. A search warrant in the fraud case had led investigators into the Cochran home and brought an unexpected surprise.
They open the fridge, they find the vial of insulin. It's suspicious that it shouldn't be there. Nobody in the family is diabetic.
Does that insulin have anything to do with Michael Cochran's death? We'll hear from his wife Natalie for the first time as investigators hit her with some tough questions.
Be having a conversation with Natalie Cochran.
This investigation is just getting started.
At first, this was just a Ponzi scheme investigation.
But as authorities investigate the fraud case, they also begin questioning Michael Cochran's unexpected death.
Michael Cochran, who was 38 years old, seemingly a fit, healthy man.
He took care of himself. He did worked out all the time.
To suddenly die in the midst of allegations of financial crimes, that's pretty suspicious.
No autopsy had been done on Michael Cochran. The death certificate issued by the hospice where he died listed natural causes.
There was no medical examiner involvement.
Natalie Cochran gave different versions of what happened with Michael on February the 6th to multiple people.
So authorities arrange a meeting with Natalie.
Today's date is April 8th, 2019.
I explained to her we were looking into Michael's death. Natalie, just tell me how things progressed with Michael.
February the 6th, whatever day we took him into the hospital. We went to the kitchen and all of a sudden he started throwing up in the sink. And I heard him hit his head, and then I went in there and he had fallen. And so I didn't know what to do because Michael was very adamant after he got out of the hospital last time. He said, if you ever take me to the hospital again, you're going to be dead.
It turns out Michael had been hospitalized for several days back in November for potential exposure to black mold. Natalie says she thought one of his training supplements could have been making him sick.
It was her belief that Michael had taken an overdose of this supplement that she alleged was coming from Mexico.
I'd always been learning that this stuff's not safe. It even came in a bottle that said for animal use only, not for human ingestion. It's like syrup.
Right.
We're taking it to gain mass and to keep its belly cut up.
Gotcha.
And it also had an insulin component in it, which bodybuilders can manipulate insulin to cut muscle.
She introduces insulin in the discussion as part of Michael Cochran's weightlifting regimen.
Mike was all about, he was just very into body.
Is there any chance that he would have purposely taken too much of that?
He did purposely take too much, but he was trying to super load.
There was always this effort to make sure that there was an explanation for insulin being somehow involved in Michael's death. In the third conversation, she brought up that Michael was injecting with insulin. She had done a complete pivot from where it was all this supplement. Now Michael's injecting insulin. The insulin he was doing through injection.
Correct. He would inject it before meals so that it would cover any carbs that he ate.
Insulin is used primarily by diabetics to essentially help us regulate the blood sugar in our body.
He wasn't diabetic, obviously.
No.
And remember, the fraud investigation is still ongoing. In June of 2019, federal and state authorities conduct a search of the Cochran house.
Natalie is there.
She was in the garage. The search warrant was done based off the financial crime information investigation only.
We anticipated finding additional evidence regarding this Ponzi scheme.
But they found something else they didn't expect.
Sometimes things happen in investigations that you call it fate. I started rummaging through the refrigerator, and there's this bottle of insulin sitting right there.
It shouldn't be there. Nobody in the family is diabetic.
That was huge. Where did it come from? Whose is it?
Natalie's got the same answer for authorities and for Michael's mother.
She said, oh, they came here and they took everything. And she said they even took the insulin out of the refrigerator.
Now, what did you make of that? Did anybody take insulin in the house?
No. I said, insulin, what are you doing with the insulin in the refrigerator? I keep that here, she said, for Gavin when he came over, if he needed a shock, because he's a diabetic.
You believed it?
We did.
Remember, Gavin is Chris and Jennifer Davis's son. They tell authorities they never stored his insulin at the Cochran house. But then they recall the bag they left for Natalie the morning Michael collapsed.
The investigator said, did she ever borrow insulin from you? And that's when Jennifer was like, yeah, she needed it. She had cancer and she got sick. And that's when they were like, you know when? And I felt like at that moment, we both were like, oh my goodness. Because now we know that she's a thief and a fraud.
When we started seeing the text messages with Jennifer Davis about insulin, it was very revealing. If you believe the previous things that Natalie has said, she should have already had insulin readily available in the home. So it made no sense to go through all this effort. I think it's clear that she poisoned him with insulin.
Authorities develop a theory of how Natalie may have used insulin to kill Michael.
When he's finally taken to the emergency room, he presented with a blood sugar level of 21, and he's not diabetic.
You get low blood sugar by receiving too much insulin. Natalie had access to insulin. She had the means to inject it. She knew exactly what insulin would do.
Investigators believe there's enough circumstantial evidence to tie Natalie to Michael's death.
39-year-old Natalie Cochran is now accused of the February 2019 murder of her husband, Michael.
Natalie Cochran pleads not guilty.
Was that hard for you to accept that your daughter-in-law is being accused of killing your son?
Yeah, it was really hard to believe because, I mean, how do you kill somebody that you're supposed to love and they're your children's father?
But why would Natalie want to kill her husband?
The investigators thought the text messages looked suspicious.
Michael didn't know about the Ponzi scheme, but he was learning.
Michael was about to discover he didn't have millions, perhaps $1 billion of legitimately earned income inbound from the federal government, and that was a problem for Natalie.
Here is exactly the motive of why she felt like she had to kill Michael.
Opening arguments began today in the Natalie Cochran trial.
In January, more than 3 years after she was indicted for the first-degree murder of her husband, Michael, Natalie Cochran's trial is finally underway.
There were media outlets from all over the country here. The interest in this case was huge.
You may be seated.
For Michael's family and friends, the 3-year wait for justice has been agonizing.
How tough was that for you all to just have this thing drag on before it's going to be resolved?
It was hard.
Yes, very hard.
Spent lots of time praying.
What was it like for you to see Natalie in that courtroom?
I can't say that I really even thought about her. We just had to get justice for Michael.
Natalie Cochran is a young woman. An 11-year sentence with good time served for the Ponzi scheme is relatively short versus a life sentence for murder. Those stakes are incredibly high.
All right, now, Mr. Truman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. On February the 5th of 2019, Michael Cochran was a 200-pound, healthy 38-year-old man. By midday of February 6th of 2019, he had lost consciousness, and he would never regain consciousness. The state needs to get ahead of the fact that it's an entirely circumstantial case. You got to tell the jury. You're not going to get the stuff you get on TV. There's no DNA, there's no fingerprints. This is it. But that's enough to convict.
This is a complex case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, but it's built by the state of West Virginia on conjectures and innuendos, and glaringly lacking in motive and the evidence necessary to prove that my client killed her husband.
Natalie understood that we cannot present a defense that would somehow skirt the issue of the Ponzi scheme or that would hide it from the jury. We admitted to the jury what was well known to everybody.
The fact that she is perhaps a fraud and perhaps a cheat, and that you wouldn't perhaps want to invite her home for Sunday dinner, that you wouldn't like her, does not translate into being a murderer.
We absolutely believe that the imminent failure of the Ponzi scheme was Natalie's motive to kill Michael. That was going to happen, and it was going to happen very, very quickly if she didn't act.
What Michael Cochran didn't know is certainly one of the most important questions here. But to me, what's more important is what he was about to know, the consequences that would come when he found out that information.
And at the heart of the case, a vial of insulin. Prosecutors called that the murder weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What keeps Gavin alive, she used to kill. She used to take life.
On the morning of February 6th, Jennifer Davis remembers getting a text from Natalie asking to borrow that insulin. She testifies about that exchange.
Can you just explain to me what's going on in this conversation?
She said that her and Mike, they were both sick, and she had to start taking small insulin shots.
Did you provide that insulin to her?
I put the insulin in a bag and gave it to my husband, and he dropped it off on the porch on the way to work.
Several hours later, Natalie sends Jennifer a picture of Michael unconscious on the kitchen floor.
What did this picture mean to you when you received it?
Just that it was just shocking that he was laying there.
Natalie contacts 2 construction workers that had worked for the family, says, Michael's on the floor. I'm gonna need help picking him up from the floor and taking him into the living room.
So after Chris Davis drops off the bag of insulin, Natalie sends out a text. She invites several friends over throughout the day to check on his condition and essentially make sure he's okay, but not take him to the hospital.
In a statement to ABC News, Natalie Cochran says that, quote, Mike hated the hospital. He threatened several people that we better not take him back.
Stephanie Hamilton, a physician's assistant, came over to check Michael out and found him non-responsive.
What did you specifically notice?
That he needed to be checked. I said even people with the history of seizures, anytime they have one, they need to be checked. I kept offering, like, I would go with her. She said she was gonna let him sleep it off.
You also heard from her later today. Take a look at that. 21. What does that mean?
No one should ever have a blood sugar of 21.
What's gonna happen if they do?
They're in a coma. Probably near death.
At some point, you go over.
Yes, and I walk in the living room. He's laying on the couch, like he's sleeping.
What did you do?
So I go over to him. I just remember saying, man, hey buddy, I'm gonna take you to the hospital. And that's exactly what I did.
But by this time, it's too late. Michael gets to the hospital, but the damage has been done.
Take a moment, you're okay.
Chris, it was very tough for you in court when they showed you the photo that you had already seen of Mike.
Yeah.
Why did it hit you so hard?
I wished I could have got to him first.
Over 2 days, prosecutors have meticulously laid out the timeline of the day Michael Cochran died. The question now, will they be able to prove that it was his wife, Natalie, who killed him?
Mr. Truman, you may call your first witness.
As prosecutors lay out their case against Natalie Cochran, they intend to show that she not only had the means, but the motive and the opportunity to kill her husband, Michael, back in February of 2019.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Robert Heinzman.
Raise your right hand, please, sir.
Bob Heinzman was the primary investigator of the defendant's Ponzi scheme, and he explained there was really no evidence that Michael knew what was going on. Now, the defense has floated the theory that Michael Cochran was up to his eyeballs in this Ponzi scheme. From your investigation, do you have any evidence that would support that?
He believed that they had obtained contracts and that they would be receiving money for these contracts.
Do you have any evidence that he knew that this was a fraud being carried on?
No.
It was important to hammer home that Michael Cochran was at least cognizant of the scheme because it would destroy the state's theory of why it happened. Have you, in your thorough investigation of this case, talked to the children of Mr. and Mrs. Cochran?
No.
Would it surprise you if I told you that they observed their parents work on the federal contracts, and you're telling this jury that he had no knowledge of these contracts?
I'm not telling the jury that. I said that he knew about the contracts that he was led to believe were bid on by their business.
The investigation had revealed that Michael was beginning to ask some really tough questions of Natalie about where the money was going.
The day before, February 5th of 2019, it was arranged by the Cochrans to charter a flight from Beckley down to Lynchburg, Virginia to meet with the Bank of America banker. And of course, that was a meeting that Natalie could never allow to happen, because if it did happen, then Michael would know, and that would have been the end of her Ponzi scheme.
Court Nexon was an employee of Bank of America. He testified via Zoom in this trial because he's not local.
And that was to take place February 6th of 2019, correct?
Correct. Looks like they said they were going to fly in, and so we were basically responding to their schedule and setting things up as best we could.
Did that meeting take place?
Never took place.
Natalie was becoming desperate at this point.
Prosecutors argue that if Michael was in the dark, Natalie's deception was about to come to light.
Putting Jennifer Davis on the stand explains how Natalie got the insulin that she needed to kill Michael.
Jennifer, at this point, you were offering to help out a friend in need. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Did she accept your offer of help?
Yes, she did. She asked if she could borrow a vial of insulin.
According to Dr. Uribe, who was one of our forensic pathologists, the only way that Michael's blood sugar could have plummeted to 21 was if someone else had given him insulin.
There was profound hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is low blood glucose. Once he was treated for the hypoglycemia, the blood sugar went up and then it went back down again. To me, that is a significant pattern.
And why is that pattern significant to you?
Because there are only a few things that can do that. One of the big things is insulin administration.
But the defense poses an important question. Could Michael have injected himself as part of a bodybuilding regimen? Dr. Uribe pushes back against that suggestion.
To my knowledge, bodybuilders don't use insulin.
During the murder investigation, Michael's remains were exhumed, and Dr. Uribe conducted an autopsy.
And what did you determine were Michael Cochran's cause and manner of death?
I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was exogenous insulin administration.
Your Honor, the state calls Timothy Bledsoe to the stand. Tim was able to draw all of the parallels and connect all of the pieces. He was able to explain for the jury how and why the Ponzi scheme and the failure of the Ponzi scheme led to the murder of Michael Cochran.
It was about telling that story, you know, another piece to the puzzle. And I think overall, I think we were successful.
And we previously heard Jennifer Davis testify that she had insulin sent to the defendant's home. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Do you recall why the defendant needed the insulin that morning?
I believe it was something related to cancer treatment.
And throughout the entire course of your investigation, did you ever uncover any evidence that the defendant had cancer?
No.
Did you waver at all? Did you wonder maybe the prosecutors had this wrong, that it was just a horrible set of circumstances?
Not once they talked to us. And then I started going back through, you know, my text, and, you know, Chris and I started talking, and then I was just in shock, disbelief. I was still in shock. It just doesn't seem real at all. But it was hard.
Prosecutors have rested their case. Now it's the defense's turn to persuade the jury that Natalie Cochran is innocent. And to do that, they bring in their own star witnesses, Michael and Natalie's children.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state has wrapped its case of circumstantial evidence. Now it's the defense's turn.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Good morning.
They believe there's not enough evidence to prove that Natalie Cochran killed her husband, Michael.
The atmosphere in the courtroom was, what's the defense going to bring? You could sense some anxiety there of what the defense was going to say about Michael to try and explain away Natalie's actions.
The defense has already told the jury that Michael Cochran was, quote, a ticking bomb because of his alleged medical problems and health history. Their game plan is to discredit the prosecution's case and Michael Cochran himself.
There was no forensic evidence to tie her to a murder. Zero forensic evidence.
They called two surprising witnesses to the stand, Natalie and Michael's children.
Would you state your name for the record?
Nicole Cochran.
Okay. What type of medication was he taking?
I know that he took steroids and he took many other supplements.
Did he do it daily?
Yes, every morning.
Was he into supplements and vitamins and all of that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. He took his supplements, his pre-workouts, and those things. He tried to take care of his body.
He would lay all of his pills out on the counter, and there would be so many of them that they would just sit in a whole circle, and it looked like the size of a dinner plate. And then he would scoop them handfuls at a time into his mouth.
The theory by the defense counsel is that Michael Cochran was not a healthy individual.
Did you start noticing changes in your father's health?
He was very agitated and angry, more so than not. and he was having a lot of headaches.
The defense asked the same line of questioning to the Cochran's son, whose face is concealed on the witness stand because he's a minor.
Did he ever inject anything?
Definitely steroids.
He took supplements and things like that. Did he take steroids?
He never took any steroids. If you would see him, everything that he has, all the muscles he has, is natural, hard work.
Mike wasn't a bodybuilder. He ate too much pizza to be a bodybuilder. Was he fit? He was. Was he in shape? He was. Did he work hard for that? He did.
And he was taking things from Mexico, they were saying, things that were not approved by the FDA.
What did he get from Mexico, do you know?
I don't know the name of the steroid, but it was definitely an anabolic.
What was that like to see them testifying on their mother's behalf?
You know, they love their mother. Of course, they're going to defend their mother. But the things they said about their father was really heartbreaking.
Defense lawyers argue that Michael Cochran was not exactly a healthy 38-year-old, and that his lifestyle led to 4 hospital visits between 2017 and the time of his death in 2019.
He got sick, and I feel like around that time is when you could just notice that he started to change a little bit, just forgetting stuff all the time. And he was more aggressive.
Towards whom? Aggressive?
Towards everybody.
Natalie had told friends and family that her husband also suffered from seizures, plus symptoms of black mold poisoning from renovations he did on their house.
Oh, had you heard of him having seizures?
We were told that he had seizures and he was exposed to black mold.
The defense also tries to hammer away at the state's motive, the Ponzi scheme. They claim Natalie Cochran wasn't the only one involved. They say Michael was too.
I always saw him working on his computer, and he would say that that's what he was doing.
Say that he was doing what?
That he was filling out contracts.
Did your mother do that?
No.
Who was working on the contracts?
My dad.
We had heard that Natalie Cochran was going to take the stand. She had informed the judge that she was going to testify in her own behalf. And at the last minute, she decided that she wasn't going to testify.
The jury was extremely attentive, but the jury was never more invested in what was being said than in the closing arguments.
All right, are you folks ready to deliver your closing remarks?
Natalie was a diabetic counselor and a pharmacist. She knew that injecting insulin into a non-diabetic would cause harm.
Is that the action of a planning cold-blooded killer? She would get that insulin ahead of time, not on the day of the murder, and involve 2 witnesses against her right there and then.
She chose over and over, after repeated pleas from friends and loved ones, to leave Michael on the couch.
It's a horrible tragedy, but a tragedy, not a murder. The state failed to answer a couple of questions, and that is, when did it happen? Where did it happen? How did it happen?
There was no deductive reasoning where you would say, well, it was Professor Plum with the candlestick in the study.
Well, it was actually the pharmacist in the kitchen, according to the prosecution's theory.
She had a clear motive, and you saw that leading up to this date, Michael was about to find out what she was doing to people. Do we know what he was going to do with that information? We never will, because he won't have the chance to tell us.
Ms. Cochran is committed crimes of fraud, but that doesn't make her a murderer. We're asking you to find her not guilty.
21 was such a crucial number because nobody's blood glucose should be at that level unless you've had an injection of insulin.
A normal blood glucose level would be anywhere from 70 to around 130.
21. And that's the number we're going to rely on to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant killed Michael Cochran. Find this defendant guilty of first-degree murder, because that's exactly what she did.
The case is now in the hands of the jury. Were prosecutors able to convince them that Natalie Cochran killed her husband? Or did the defense poke enough holes to sow reasonable doubt?
People yell out, "There's a verdict," and then people start scurrying to get a seat inside the courtroom.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, sir. When that verdict comes back, they were shocked.
The verdict, handed down just weeks ago, came quickly. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours.
Would the defendant please rise? The jury verdict is as follows. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree.
What was it like when you heard guilty?
We were so happy because we're finally getting justice for Michael after all these years.
You know, I could just feel my spirit and everything just went, you know, this is what it's supposed to be.
It was exhilarating to hear the word guilty. And all I can think is we did it, we got her.
And the jury is not finished. They've got another decision to make, what's known as the mercy phase.
Good morning, members of the jury. Good morning. You are back.
Mercy, which means the defendant gets parole eligibility after serving 15 years, or no mercy, which means there's no eligibility for parole.
You'll raise your right hand, please.
A slew of Natalie Cochran's family, including her mom, tearfully take the stand.
I beg. I don't know what else I can say except please give mercy to her.
For a second time, Natalie's 19-year-old daughter faces the jury that's already convicted her mom in her father's murder.
I missed her at my high school graduation, and I missed her on the day I moved into college. I'm begging you to give her mercy so that I don't have to miss more.
Natalie Cochran's family ended up leaving when the family of Michael Cochran, when they were up there.
Raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
We, along with our family and friends, have sat quietly and graciously and painfully watched and listened as Michael's good name has been murdered time and time again.
It was one of the most intense pieces of testimony in the entire trial.
This spoiled, evil, narcissistic murderer had seldom, if ever, been denied this which she wanted. She will try to blame my precious son Michael for her evilness and deceit.
Do you remember what you said that you felt the strongest about?
When I said that please, please, don't give her any mercy, we ask that you please, please, no mercy. She never gave Michael any mercy.
I think it was extremely riveting for the jury to see.
We, the jury, unanimously do not recommend mercy.
Natalie Cochran will spend the rest of her life in prison.
But the pain lives on for Michael's friends, Jennifer and Chris, whose son's insulin may very well have been used to end their friend's life.
I trusted her, and that's the exact same thing she used and borrowed from me, and that's hard, and that's something I'll have to live with.
As far as I'm concerned, justice has been done. She's where she needs to be.
You've lost your son, you've lost financially, you've lost a lot.
Yes, we have, but we have each other and we're strong for each other. That's the only way we can get by, and because of God.
What about your grandchildren? Do you hope to have a relationship at some point with them?
Right now, I think it's best the way that it is. I don't see them coming around, and we have to accept it and just go on.
Just days after the verdict, I visited with Michael's parents. His stepfather, Ed, took me to a special place they've created to honor their son's memory.
Sunrise, sneaking through the curtain. Coffee cup cooling on the side. You're still tangled in that blanket. I'm still tangled in your mind. Bare feet on cold kitchen tile. You call my name through a sleepy smile. Wake me up, baby. like you always do. Kiss me till the morning, feels brand new. Shake my bones, my lazy heart, pull me in and restart. Wake me up, baby, wake me up with you.
We should know tonight that Natalie
Phone
Cochran
keeps
does
buzzing on the dresser, world keeps yelling at the door. But your hand slips under my sweater, and I don't need much more. Burnt toast, laugh it off together. Wrong song playing, we sing it better. Wake me up, baby, like you always do. Kiss me till the morning, feels brand born. Shake my bones, my lazy heart, pull me in and restart. Wake me up, baby, wake me up with you. Don't need alarm, just your breath on my neck. That sleepy head got me losing my step. If this is all we ever get to do, I'll fall asleep just to wake up next to you. Wake me up, baby, like you always do.
In 2021, Juliana Perez
kiss me till the morning,
Virginia,
feels brand new. Shake my bones, my lazy heart, pull me in and restart. Wake me up, baby, wake me up with you. Wake me up with you.
And like a lot of couples, they have demanding jobs, and they needed somebody to help them do their daughter.
Wake me up.
A year 4 months after Juliana joins the family, a tragedy hits the family.
Wake me up, baby, I just want you.
On February 24th, 2023, the family life that Juliana Magalhaes was sharing with the Banfields was completely shattered. It was turned upside down.
911, where's your emergency?
I need help. There is my friend. She just was stuck in the knife now. She's bleeding a lot. I don't know what to do anymore.
Okay, where are you located? What's your address?
At the oh my God.
Take a deep breath for me. Just let me know your address.
The Banfields au pair, Juliana, is the one who calls 911.
There's a woman on the phone, and she's difficult to understand. She's not able to get out the address or really the nature of the emergency.
Is there somebody else there that can give you the address?
Stablebrook Way.
Okay. And what's your name and what's going on?
My name is Brendan Banfield. I'm a federal agent. This is my house. There's somebody here. I shot him. But he stabbed her.
Brendan described in his 911 call that he, in fact, interrupted a man attacking his wife in the primary bedroom of their home.
Brendan tells them that he shot the attacker to protect his wife.
She's bleeding. She's got several marks on her neck. It's my wife. She's not responding. She's heart's still beating. She's
Okay.
still breathing.
You said she's breathing normally. She's just not responding to you.
She's got a very big hole in her neck.
Can you just send help, please?
Yeah, they're on the way. And you said you don't know the individual that was shot.
No.
Okay, I have officers that are pulling up outside, okay?
Myself and all the other detectives on my squad that were available responded out to the scene.
When police arrive at the Banfield home and go up to the master bedroom, they enter a chaotic scene.
Police go up the stairs, then they're on the staircase. They see Juliana inside the primary bedroom. Juliana comes outside the bedroom, speaks to an officer, and she tells the officer the 4-year-old girl is in the basement.
My host kid is downstairs.
Okay.
I'm here.
How old's your host kid?
She's 4.5.
4.5. Where is she?
I need to talk to her. She doesn't know anything. What's
Can we get her and we'll go outside?
So the police officer and Juliana together, go down into the basement. You can see a little 4-year-old girl.
Hey, I'm Officer Bell. Nice to meet you. Do you want to go outside with us?
We need to go outside, okay?
You see Juliana, at the behest of police, take the daughter out of the house.
Do you just want to tell me quickly what happened?
I don't really know what happened. Everything happened too fast.
The police officer tells the 4-year-old girl, why don't you go with that officer?
Can you go with Officer Battani really quick? Why don't you come with us? He has some stickers for you.
During this time, Juliana starts making some statements to the officer about what happened.
I was going to take her to the zoo this morning, and then I forgot the lunch we were gonna bring.
Juliana basically explains what happened that morning. How Brendan left for work, Christine is home that day. Juliana, is taking the little girl to the zoo for the day. She had forgot their lunches. She came back, she saw a strange car in the driveway. A man got out of it and he walked through the front door of the house.
Do you know who the person is?
I have no idea.
She calls Christine Banfield, who does not answer her phone. Then she calls Brendan Banfield, alerts him to what is happening.
I called Brendan, it's her husband. He's up there. I called him. I see a strange car, but I don't know who is that. Can you please come here? I'm scared.
Brendan was at a nearby McDonald's, and then he came back to the home.
He comes home, the three of them go into the back of the house, left the little girl in the basement, and went upstairs.
Juliana explains that she and Brendan saw this man holding a knife at Christine, threatening to kill her.
Brendan was saying, police, drop the knife, drop the knife. I'm sorry, my first English is not
No, you're doing really well.
And then he was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her. And I don't know, he started stabbing her. I think Brendan shot him.
You can see she's shaken up. She's not speaking complete sentences.
It's okay.
You see Juliana hyperventilating, flustered, just seemingly very distraught.
Okay, take a breath. It's okay. Take a minute, okay?
I need some water.
Outside the house, Juliana is talking to police, and Brendan is upstairs with the police in the bedroom where all this happened.
Brendan Banfield is escorted out of the house. He was complaining of an injury or pain to his leg. While he was being transported, Brendan asked about his wife, Christine.
Is there a way to get an update?
We see him put into an ambulance. We see officers talking to him.
Where'd all this blood come from, you know? I was holding her neck. Can I be with her?
They're gonna work on her when they get there. You wouldn't be able to see her immediately anyway.
I want to be with her.
Okay.
He was eventually transported to a hospital. There's a doctor that comes in at one point when Brendan is at the hospital.
We have one of the doctors here. Your wife has died. Sounds like there was a lot of blood loss.
Yes.
So I think that she died of blood loss.
I was trying to apply pressure.
Yeah. I mean, those were enormous wounds, and you know, it's not.
There were so many.
Yes, and the neck is not compressible, so it's not possible really to stop all the blood loss. Everything that was possible to be done was done for her right away. You did a wonderful, you know, you did everything that was possible. It's not a survivable injury. You want to wash your hands? Probably feel better after that. Soap right here.
As Brendan is struggling with the idea that he has lost his wife, a patient advocate joins him, and you can hear him praying.
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
While Brendan's at the hospital, the house is being processed as a crime scene.
Police Chief Kevin Davis of Fairfax County came out and spoke to reporters.
We have 2 adults who have been killed. One was shot and killed, and the other was stabbed and killed.
The wife of the household was killed. A man unrelated to the household was shot. It's unclear their relationship.
And we're just trying to work out the details, the sequence of these violent acts.
Police need to figure out who is this man who Brendan Banfield says he came upon in the master bedroom of his house attacking his wife.
We don't know a lot of things just yet, and we're working really hard to find them out. Certainly a double murder in a quiet community like this one is unusual, and it's upsetting to everyone. I get it, and we're gonna work really hard to get the facts.
When we first heard this story, it seemed pretty clear-cut. There was an intruder who came in when Christine was still sleeping, who got caught in the middle of the act.
The interest in this was big and bold right away, and we knew that this was going to be a big one immediately. Brendan Banfield was a federal law enforcement officer. He worked for the IRS. Federal law enforcement carried a gun both on and off duty. His wife, Christine, is an ICU nurse.
So this happened in Fairfax County. It's just outside of Washington, D.C.
The area where the Banfields lived was an upper middle class suburban neighborhood, roughly $1 million homes, a lot of families around.
I know that community to be very quiet, very safe, tree-lined streets, cul-de-sacs, a lot of kids. We enjoy a very low violent crime rate. So murders don't happen very often in Fairfax County.
In the hours after this tragic incident, law enforcement does reveal the name of that mystery man found inside the home, Joseph Ryan.
The male decedent who was found dead inside the home, shot to death, Joseph Nathan Ryan. He's 39 years old. At the beginning of the investigation, we didn't know much at all about Joe Ryan.
We know that he lives locally. He doesn't have any apparent connections to the Banfields.
We have to sort out the exact nature of Mr. Ryan's presence inside the home.
I sat down with 3 of the nurses who had worked with Christine over the years. They were bonded in this pediatric ICU unit. I mean, they couldn't believe this had happened to their friend.
I heard from a coworker. She was like, hey, I just heard that Christine's dead. And I was like, what are you talking about?
And you hear that she's stabbed in her own home. What do you make of this?
I was just like in absolute disbelief at that time. She's such a genuine, caring person, so for something that brutal to happen to her, it just didn't make sense.
Christine and Brendan Banfield had been together for almost 2 decades, starting in college. They had moved from Long Island, New York in 2019 to Virginia.
And she had left her job. She was working as a sexual assault nurse examiner, so she left that position and she came down and she was excited to work in the PICU.
And being in pediatric ICU, I mean, that's got to be very hard.
You have to be strong, emotionally strong. When you have to really love what you do. She definitely was extremely resilient, very smart, very kind.
In fact, I heard her described as a mother hen.
100%. When I first met her, she's like, hi, I'm Christine. People know me as the mother hen. And I was like, what? She was like, I just take everybody in underneath of my wings and make sure everybody feels welcomed and loved and cared for. When COVID first happened, without knowing the risks of what was going on, she took it upon herself to volunteer. She offered to go over to the adult side and work with some of their COVID positive patients.
There was a patient she had during COVID who was in a coma for a very long time.
I was 5 weeks in coma. When I was in coma, one day I just wake up. When I opened my eyes, I saw a nurse that was taking care of me. And she's like, how can I help you? She was advocating for me and doing everything. She was shaving me, she was cleaning me. I think as a nurse, she was an angel. It was the best person that God gave me in this moment just to come back to life. After I got out of the hospital, I asked her, like, hey, can we have a call? It was amazing. Just to see her, I invite her to my house with her husband and her daughter. She went to my birthday with her family. She was the kindest person that I met in the US.
As a friend and as a nurse, she was one of the most compassionate people I've ever known. She always thought about someone else before she thought about herself. I am Christine's best friend from childhood. We've been friends for over 40 years. As kids, we lived 2 houses down, so we were always together. Every birthday we spent together. Our first Holy Communions, our confirmations, proms, Sweet 16s, I mean, you name it. At every stage of life, she was there for. Christine could be a spitfire. She was fun, she was funny, and she liked to have a good time. Then as we got a little older, we got obsessed with the Backstreet Boys, and we would stay up all night learning the Everybody dance and things like that.
Everybody, rock your body right.
I remember when she came back from college, she was one of my first friends to get married, and going through all of that and their first house together.
Christine and Brendan, by all appearances, have a lot in common. They like hiking and traveling and looking after their 2 dogs, Huskies.
Her baby shower was exactly 8 years ago, and the laughing and being so excited for her to become a mom. It was a beautiful day.
Did you get a sense of what kind of a mom she was?
The best mom ever.
She just loved her so much. She always would show us pictures that her daughter had drawn or what outfit she had picked out for the day and had taken pictures and would share it with everybody there.
How much did you know about Brendan?
She just talked very highly of him all the time. I mean, she was very proud that he worked for the government and the life that they had built and created.
She was definitely more of an extrovert, and I think he was more of an introvert.
Brendan came off shy and into like gaming and things like that.
I had an opportunity to meet one of Brendan's friends, Brian Jarrett. They met on a gaming site. They were both avid gamers. Later, they actually met each other in person and their friendship continued. They participated in these tough mutter races together. He thought a lot of Brendan.
He's one of those people, it seemed like, oh, he always like had it all figured out. It seemed like had like, a life that a lot of people would be envious of. He always presented himself as somebody of very high integrity. He was always really good at analyzing the situation and finding like maybe the most efficient way to approach it. I was over at their house a good bit. It seemed like he really cared about his family, and that was what was most important to him in his life. Just seemed to have it all.
Was she pleased with where their lives were going?
I would say so. I mean, she would describe her life as perfect, and she used that word perfect.
She posted one time, "All of my heart fit into one picture." Did that seem to describe the way she felt about her home life?
Yeah, everything was perfect.
They couldn't believe that the person they knew would wind up dead like this.
Their au pair saw this man walk through the front door of the house carrying a bag. It seemed pretty intentional. How did that happen?
This question started to come up of, did Christine know this person?
It comes out that Joe Ryan wasn't necessarily a stranger, that he had communications with a Christine Banfield. On this website,
it's like, what's going on here? Is she leading a secret life?
This is the morning of the homicides. And Juliana, the au pair, is right there comforting Christine's daughter right after this horrible thing has happened in the house.
I don't know what to tell her.
You don't have to tell her anything, okay?
But
You just give her a big hug, tell her she's okay? All right, give her a big hug, okay? Tonight? Wow.
Many people hire babysitters. Christine had an au pair. How did she decide to go that route as opposed to the classic babysitter or nanny?
She saw having an au pair as an opportunity to invite somebody to our country, to give them the opportunity they wouldn't have if they were not here.
So she saw it as sort of giving
100%.
to someone else.
100%. Christine saw her au pairs as family.
the Banfields had an au pair prior to Juliana, and they seemed to really have loved that au pair.
She'd even posted on social media about the first au pair she had. She posted, "My daughter and her best friend, her sister, her third parent, her everything."
We had an au pair of our own for a year when my first son was 6 months old. And
was that based on their
yeah,
advice?
it was based on their recommendation. She went ahead and sent me a lot of the questions and things that she was looking for with her au pair, and that's kind of used that as like a guideline.
Then later she gets another au pair, Juliana.
Her initial au pair had gotten married, and she had talked openly about another person coming in from Brazil and was excited to have a new person.
Before leaving Brazil, Juliana had studied nursing. She was a classic 20-year-old. She loved experimenting with makeup, seemed to be checking out dating apps, and she was proud of her heritage. You can see in her bedroom there at the Banfield house, the Brazilian flag hanging up on her wall.
Law enforcement is still investigating the scene, seeing what evidence is going to piece together to get a full understanding of what happened.
Initially, Brendan and his daughter and his family, they were all placed in a hotel nearby while police were investigating the crime scene in the house. And I went ahead and visited him over there.
How was Brendan reacting at that point? He's killed somebody, his wife is dead?
He seemed pretty sad and broken up about it. He was talking about, like how we wouldn't be able to do any of the future things that he and Christine had planned. I know even one time I brought up how his daughter was gonna have a birthday party. And he's like, yeah, normally Christine would take care of that. I don't know what to do.
Your heart must have broken for him.
Yeah, it sounded terrible.
What about Juliana? How was she?
She was saying oh, the police talked to me for 8 hours the previous day.
When I saw Brendan for the first time at the funeral, I would describe him as a zombie. The only thing that he ever said to me at the wake was, how can somebody take her from us?
Almost from the beginning, it seemed that police had questions that were not typical of their usual homicide cases.
There was no forced entry whatsoever. This is not a home invasion.
There was no broken windows. There was no busted in doors.
If this was a stranger, why wasn't there forced entry?
When they examine the devices of Christine and Joseph Ryan, they see there's a lot of communication between them.
It appears that Joe Ryan wasn't exactly an intruder. It looks like he and Christine might have been in contact before.
Joe Ryan had communications with a Christine Banfield on this website, a social media platform for people interested in sexual fetishes.
FetLife is an adult fetish website where people can go on it, set up an account, find people who are willing to carry out some kind of fantasy.
It seemed that he had coordinated a meeting with a Christine Banfield that day for rough sex.
Joseph Ryan, it's his understanding that he and Christine Banfield are going to fulfill some kind of rape fantasy that involves knives and restraints.
We discovered a Telegram message thread that was a continuation of the initial conversations that occurred through the FetLife site.
On Telegram, Christine's name was Anastasia. Anastasia says, "I'm excited but nervous." On February 22nd, this is 2 days before the attack, Anastasia says, "I can't wait for Friday." She says, "I probably will be a bit panicked. I think that is part of the fun of it."
Joseph sends a picture of all the equipment he intends to bring to their first encounter. The knife, the chain, the ropes.
On the day of, Joe says 7:30 ETA, traffic, exclamation point, to which Anastasia responds, "Okay, I'll be waiting for you." When you look at all these Telegram communications, it makes you wonder if this was a sexual encounter that the two of them had arranged and it just went awry.
Could she have had a side that you just didn't know about?
That story reeked from day one. I was like, this doesn't add up. This isn't right. This is not Christine.
Guys, are we ready? Okay.
My name is Deirdre Fisher. I am Joseph Nathan Ryan's mother. I would describe my son as somebody who was intelligent, caring, creative, somebody who embraced life. Very high-spirited and playful. He did jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. And he also was an animal lover. He collected old, ugly dogs, rescue dogs, and he loved them.
Who's a spaz? Are you?
He was talkative and friendly. He was caring, and he was somebody who loved his family. And those are just some things about Joe that I want people to know. I first heard that something happened to my son a day and a half after he was murdered. I got a call on the phone. The lead detective told me Joe had been killed. And I do remember screaming, no, no, no. I remember it. And I just continued to scream for a while.
I am the best friend of Joseph Ryan's mother. And I knew Joe most of his life, knew him well. He was like a nephew to me. We knew Joe wasn't capable of the heinous things Brendan had told them and that what Juliana had told them. Joe was one of the least violent people I've ever known.
And this is a picture of me and Joe together. This is a picture I took of Joe right after he got this haircut. This was his favorite haircut of all time, and he's showing it off. I would describe Joe's personality as somewhere in between an extrovert and an introvert. He had moments of really sort of an entertaining personality. The rest of the time, Joe was sometimes quiet and like he did things like the Appalachian Trail by himself, weeks in the woods, climbing mountains.
He was a very unconventional person, and I admired that about him. Even as a kid, he knew who he was. He didn't care much about what the rest of the world thought.
Joe was kind of counterculture in some ways. He was not driven financially in any way. So he spent his life doing all kinds of jobs. He would work construction as a lifeguard, as a bouncer at times. He worked as a farmer. He took care of sick people sometimes. I'm a survivor of cancer twice, and Joe flew in to take care of me. And he offered to shave his head because I was bald at the time. And I said no.
I was taking a picture of them together, smiling. And after that first picture, Deirdre was like, oh, I want to put my wig on. You know, I'm a little self-conscious. And so Joe's like, well, I'm going to put your other wig on. And in camaraderie, took a picture with her other cancer wig, and they're smiling. That encapsulates who he was pretty well. Joe was very close to his mom. They shared their hopes and dreams and anything about their lives.
Joe could talk about any subject with me, so he began to tell me about his interest in BDSM. Joe described to me all the encounters that he had sexually as completely consensual. That was his thing. That was very important to him. He didn't want to push somebody to do something they didn't want to do. I knew Joe was very gentle as a person and concerned about the welfare of his romantic and sexual partners.
And Joe Ryan seemed to want to make sure anybody he was going to connect with was into it as well. He even messaged in a telegram message to Anastasia, I'm not interested in violating boundaries. And he goes on to say, I don't want to do this if you're having a panic attack or injured or something, right?
So the night before he died, he sent me a text and a picture, and he told me how proud of himself. He had lost weight, he was in shape, and he was really happy. He was in a good place. So that's the last picture of Joe before his death, the night before, to his mommy. You know, Joe's no kind of killer. He sent a picture to Mom and said how happy he was. And I'm glad he was happy the night before he died. On that day, I believe my son thought he was walking into a role play sex scene that was mutually beneficial to both parties. He thought he was going into a good time.
As the months go by and the investigation is continuing, there still are a lot of questions about Joseph Ryan, but there are questions about Christine Banfield too. What police need to do is figure out if this profile, Anastasia, on this website is consistent with Christine's character and what other people know about her.
I immediately knew this isn't the truth. There's got to be more to this story.
I was like, this doesn't add up. This isn't right. This is not Christine.
Could she have had a side that you just didn't know about?
I mean, it's always possible, but if she were ever gonna partake in something like that, she would definitely not do it in her own home, much less at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning as her child had just walked out the door. This was just completely out of character for her. Having an affair is one thing, but having an affair under the guise of a rape fantasy when her being the sexual assault nurse, it was not her. If she could never do anything like that.
So there may be mysteries about Christine Banfield. Who is Christine really? But there are questions about Brendan Banfield too.
As we're investigating, we start to discover things that occurred in the past in the marriage between Brendan Banfield and Christine Banfield.
It's critical for detectives to look into the background of all people who were present in the house to understand exactly what happened, because it's not always what it appears to be.
5 people were in the house, which included Christine Banfield, Brendan Banfield, the family's au pair, Juliana, Joseph Ryan, and the 4-year-old girl.
Brendan hires a lawyer, so his lawyer tells him, don't talk. That's not unusual. So on advice of counsel, he doesn't talk. So we don't really know anything from Brendan except what he said initially, which wasn't much.
As we're investigating, we start to discover things that occurred in the past in the marriage between Brendan Banfield and Christine Banfield.
Detectives doing what they do were able to find a woman who had a relationship with Brendan early in his marriage.
I got a chance to meet up with a woman who had actually had a relationship with Brendan. She had connected with Brendan 10 years before. It was the first time she had sat down on television, and she wanted to tell her story. But she was a little uncomfortable revealing her face. You rolling? Oh, you are? Okay. Are you okay with these shots?
Yes, this shot is fine.
And you're fine with us using your a pseudonym for you,
Correct,
Jennifer?
yes.
Okay, very good. So you ready to tell your story?
I am.
What kind of an impression did he give you?
I thought he was cute, attractive, and he just seemed nice. He was very flattering, you know, had nice things to say about me, which is always a plus.
Jennifer says she connected with him on a sugar baby website, a website for young women who want to date, but they want financial benefits. Was the expectation that it was dating or sex for hire?
It was more like relationship for hire. I didn't see it as sex work or anything like that. It was more just like, I just want you to take care of me.
How much did he pay you?
It wasn't like a life-changing amount of money. It was something like, if we met up for a weekend, like maybe $600 or something like that. And there were times like he gave me money like just as a gift, like go buy yourself something, or he would just buy me something.
She says he told her that he was married. Now, he gave her the impression that he was not really happy in his marriage, she says.
He kind of painted me a picture of what the marriage was like, which probably was false in retrospect. But, you know, he was like, oh, my wife, like, we don't even sleep in the same room anymore. We haven't even, like, been more than roommates for months and months.
So he gave you the impression that he was in an unhappy marriage and...
Yeah, very much. He would just tell me about negative things and what things he didn't like about her. I realize now it was like a carefully curated viewpoint, like for my benefit.
He was married, so how did he find time to spend long days or maybe even a weekend with you?
Well, his wife, she's a nurse, and she had a job at the time that involved a lot of time away from home.
Did you go to his home ever?
I did, all the time. He was very nonchalant about having me in his home. It didn't bother him at all. And you know, he would do these very detailed like cleanings after I leave because I have different colored hair from his wife. So, you know, there's like, he called it CSI sweep, which was really stupid. But, you know, it was just like, I think he almost liked it. It was almost like a game to him. It was kind of like, there's a thrill, I think, to doing forbidden things, right?
Jennifer says that Brendan told her that he wanted to divorce his wife, but no divorce happens. And she says that he was really sort of obsessed with money and worried about money.
He, I guess, was under the impression that he'd be giving up far more money than he ought to if they went through a divorce, so he just didn't want to give up a penny that he didn't have to.
Their affair is going on and going strong, and Jennifer says one day Christine comes home and finds them there.
I heard the door opening, and I like kind of half-heartedly tried to like hide in a corner somewhere while they were talking, but you know, he was like, you can come out now. And in a way, it was like she scolded me, and you know, she was like, you don't understand how hard I work for this family, and you know, you can just like waltz in here and just like have fun like this while I'm working hard and trying to make money for our family. I was just like, oh, this is very, very weird for me, and I would like to leave, so I left. And then he was like, yeah, I'm gonna need to talk to her. But then I found out later that it was more of just like, you know, he was just like reassuring his wife that they were like, the marriage was still okay, that, you know, he was really, really sorry, but it was just like a one-time fling.
She says they were dating for about a year, and then she says he dumps her. Years have gone by. Jennifer has moved on from Brendan, and then she happens to come across this article, and she reads Brendan's name. She couldn't believe it.
The circumstances of what I was reading were very bizarre, and I was like, this is not normal. Like, there's something weird about the situation.
Jennifer tells me this was so unsettling that she reached out to a detective on the case.
I just wanted to reveal a piece of information that he had an affair before.
You wanted investigators to know what his character was all about.
Right, like, yeah.
It was important for Jennifer to come forward because it shows that Brendan is not true to his wife. He also didn't speak so well about Christine.
Christine's friends, the nurses who worked alongside her, said Christine often talked about infidelity, how she was so sickened by it.
We were sharing stories about other people we knew and the lengths that they would go to hide their affairs. And she used the word disgusting. That's the most disgusting thing that somebody could do to their partner.
Did she ever let on whether she worried her husband might be?
No.
It's okay. Were you here when it happened, or did
When Juliana was interviewed initially by detectives, she denied having any type of sexual relationship with Brendan Banfield. She described their relationship as he is her employer and she is his au pair.
She denied having an affair with him, but then they find pictures and video that tell a very different story.
For a while, the case didn't have a lot of developments.
There was no arrest. I just was afraid there wouldn't be justice for Joe. It was very difficult. It was very, very difficult.
It's been a few months since Christine was killed in her home, and her husband, Brendan, is still living in the house with their daughter. What was Brendan like during this period, trying to care for his daughter, having lost his wife? What was he like?
He would say to me, you know, like, this is one of the first times in my life where I really feel kind of lost, or I like don't know what to do. I know he even like showed me how his bedroom, which had been completely gutted out, and how he was getting it redone. And I thought, I guess if you're still gonna somehow live in this house, trying to make the best of the situation.
And interestingly, Juliana, the au pair, is still living in this house too.
Law enforcement continues their investigation. They're also looking at Juliana's social media. There are a lot of photos of what you would imagine a 22-year-old woman posting, but as they look at those photos, they see someone that they believe looks like Brendan, but having strategic emojis or pictures posted over his face.
There was some items of clothing, a watch, and other items that led us to suspect that it may be Brendan Banfield. And we discovered that Juliana had told her friend about the affair she was having.
That becomes the basis of a search warrant to get Juliana's social media. And what the police find is a lot of evidence that she was having an intimate relationship with Brendan.
Prosecutors had said that they found photos of them, you know, out in public.
Among the photos the police found on one of Juliana's devices was photos of a trip that Juliana and Brendan took, and they took Brendan's daughter in October 2022, before the murders.
Juliana and Brendan Banfield took a trip together to New York. They suggested that this was more than just a fling, that this was a relationship.
Brendan and Juliana had been having an affair. The police think at least 6 months before Christine was killed.
And from there, this blows open the case in a whole different way. This leads them to believe maybe there's something more here. Maybe there's a motive that they didn't see at first.
You're watching 7 News.
A family's au pair is now charged with shooting and killing a man in a Reston home.
The Fairfax County Police Department announced today they made a new arrest in that case, and they're charging the family's au pair with second-degree murder.
8 months after the homicides, Juliana is arrested and charged with second-degree murder for the death of Joseph Ryan.
Juliana pleads not guilty.
I'm Jenna Sands, and I am the Chief Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney for Fairfax County. We knew that Juliana was responsible for the death of Joseph Ryan.
It turns out that on the day of the shooting, Juliana tells the police on the scene that she shot Joe Ryan too.
Yeah, and Brendan said, no, police don't drop the knife, and I think Brendan shot him, and he asked me help, shot him too.
She said from the very beginning that Brendan shot Joe Ryan first, and she shot him second.
Juliana told police Joseph Ryan. He's on the ground. He's bleeding. And then they hear a moan from Joseph Ryan. Juliana is then directed by Brendan Banfield to go into the closet and get another gun. And according to police, Juliana fired that fatal blow and killed Joseph Ryan.
We knew that she had shot Joe in that room, and we did not have a reasonable defense that we could imagine for her, given the evidence.
When we arrested Juliana, we followed up with another search warrant at the residence. And when we went into the house, the first thing that I think all the investigators noticed was all the pictures of Christine were gone. Then we went up into the primary bedroom. On the nightstand next to the bed was a photograph of Brendan Banfield and Juliana in a romantic kind of embrace, like a couple. It was a picture of a couple. And when we looked around the rest of the room, inside the closet, throughout the room, we found Juliana's clothing, Juliana's lingerie. Juliana had effectively replaced Christine.
And when you saw those photos?
Disgusted. You're really gonna move into the master bedroom a few months after the woman who hired you to come in and take care of your child dies and is murdered in that same bedroom? No.
It's so insulting. It's insulting to Christine's memory. Not only that, Christine's family, and most of all, Christine's daughter.
There was no trace of her. There was no photographs. There was no memorial. It was as if she had never existed in the first place.
And then police discover something else that sets off alarm bells.
At Juliana's pretrial hearing, it comes out that she went to a shooting range with Brendan twice before Christine is killed, in October and December. And she, in fact, has a photo of herself firing a gun that she posts on social media.
When you combine that with the fact that he never took his wife shooting, it really points in the direction of a plot.
Juliana could serve a lot of time for this.
If convicted, it's a minimum of 5 years in prison with a maximum of 40 years.
Police are still suspicious of Brendan, and now they're zeroing in on another 911 call, one made on the morning of the killings, a full 15 minutes before that other one that she made asking for help.
County 911, where's your emergency?
We could hear in that call what sounded like a man moaning.
It's very revealing. The question is, what happened in those 15 minutes?
Here we go.
It's the new year, 2023, and Christine Banfield is very excited. In fact, she even posted on her social media, 2022 was pretty awesome. Let's see if 2023 can top it. Just a few weeks later, she would be dead.
Fairfax County Police are still investigating who killed a woman inside that home.
It just seems like she was so looking forward to the next year.
Yeah, it's incredibly tragic now, looking back on it.
A woman working as an au pair for a family in Herndon has been arrested and charged for a fatal shooting.
While Juliana was in jail, Brendan was living a version of a normal life. Not quite the life that he had led before, but somewhat normal. He was no longer IRS law enforcement. He was making money as a delivery driver, living with his daughter and his mother in the house, coaching sports for his daughter.
At the point in time that we arrested Juliana, we still couldn't tie Brendan to it until we had had the opportunity to really work that scene, to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. But when we received all of that evidence, that's when we were able to take the next step.
We've got shocking new details tonight in a double murder in Reston. We've been following this for more than a year now.
570 days after the murders, Brendan Banfield is indicted for aggravated murder.
Brendan Banfield pleads not guilty.
We have evidence to now allege that Christine Banfield's life was unlawfully taken and Joseph Ryan's life was unlawfully taken.
You have anything you want to say?
I was happy. I was celebrating. I couldn't have been more thrilled.
That's when I was like, yes, finally, they got this guy.
What did you make of that? This is the man you thought you knew to be this upstanding guy.
Basically thinking that, wow, we're like me and so many other people wrong about him all this time.
Just a few hours from now, a husband accused of killing his wife and another man is due back in a Fairfax County courtroom for a bond hearing.
The police theory and their evidence to prove it is that Brendan was the mastermind behind an incredibly intricate, detailed plan to kill his wife.
It's digital evidence, it's physical evidence, it's forensics evidence, it's circumstantial evidence, but the work still goes on.
Police and the prosecution believe that Brendan created or used a FetLife account posing as Christine.
He created a fictitious account in his wife's name, portraying her image.
Using this catfish scheme in order to lure an unsuspecting sexual partner to have this kind of violent sex act that would presumably look like he was assaulting her.
Make it look like he was an intruder. Shoot Joseph Ryan, the so-called intruder, and then stab Christine.
Brendan's plan was to replace his wife with Juliana.
More details come out about what exactly happened that morning in the hour or so before the murders. We learned that Brendan Banfield left and went to McDonald's and ordered a breakfast sandwich and stayed there for 20 minutes. And Juliana said she was going to take the little girl to the zoo for an outing, but she didn't. She stayed in a cul-de-sac watching the house. Brendan had unlocked the door using Christine's phone. He had shut her phone off and put it in a drawer off the kitchen.
As Juliana waited, she saw Joseph Ryan arrive. She then called Brendan. He then meets with Juliana and his daughter, and they sneak around the back of the house, where they enter through the basement entrance. Brendan goes upstairs first, followed shortly by Juliana, where they open the door of the primary bedroom, and Brendan shoots Joseph Ryan, then takes a knife that was brought by Joseph Ryan as part of a scripted sexual foreplay, and he begins to stab Christine.
Police are looking at everything, but now they are laser focused on a quick call to 911 made from Juliana's phone a full 15 minutes before that other one that she made asking for help.
Fairfax County 911, where's your emergency? Hello, Fairfax County 911.
It's only 8 seconds long, and you can hear moaning in the background. And now police realize that's probably Joseph Ryan moaning in the background. The call is hung up. Dispatchers try to call back.
Hello, this is Fairfax County 911. We had a call from this number. If you have an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. This call was made in error. You can disregard this message. Thank you.
Prosecutors say the initial 911 call was made too soon, that Juliana called before everything was properly laid out.
What we think happened between the two 911 calls was that Brendan gives the signal to Juliana to hang up the phone. And at that point in time, Joe is now dead, Christine is dying, and Brendan manipulates the scene. We think that he picks up enough of Christine's blood to be able to leave traces of it on Joseph Ryan.
Prosecutors say that Banfield smeared it on Joseph Ryan to make it look like he was the one stabbing Christine.
Now there are two people sitting in jail awaiting their murder trials.
Yeah, get your breath.
But is one of them gonna flip?
I was going to bury Joe's ashes, and I just couldn't let him go. So we're looking at half of Joe's ashes. It sits on top of a dresser in my living room. And every day I say hi to Joe. And then every night I'd say goodnight to him. And I'll wave at the box.
Tonight, a major new development in a 2023 double murder in Reston.
It's now been more than a year and a half into this investigation. And now a big turn. Juliana is actually offered a plea deal.
According to my sources, the Fairfax County Commonwealth's attorney offered this plea deal to Juliana Perez Maglahays in exchange for her testimony against Brendan Banfield.
There'd been a lot of discussion about how we could get her to turn. There were discussions that sounded a whole lot like dating advice. Leave her alone. She'll come to us, give her time. She'll make the right choice. We heard from her attorney after we had charged Brendan Banfield that she was finally ready to confess.
Yeah, get your breath.
So in order to get this deal, Juliana has to sit down with prosecutors and law enforcement. She's got to come clean with everything, and she has to be truthful.
Have you had, to your satisfaction, full and fair opportunity to consult with your lawyers?
Yes.
The idea was for her to tell us in her own words exactly what she remembered so that we would know that it was reliable.
She told us that the trip to New York was the time when Brendan first talked to her openly about his plan to kill Christine.
He basically told me, I want to tell you something, but I don't want you to be afraid or scared or leave me. I said, okay, you can tell me whatever. And then he said, I don't want Christine in our lives. And then I asked him, we're going to divorce her. And then he said, I don't want to share my custody it would be easier if she was not in the picture.
Juliana corroborates this catfish theory.
He told me that he was going to create an account on the website, FetLife.
Where in the house were you predominantly when he is on FetLife?
It was mostly in the basement. We sit there and then was with her laptop. He said he needed to find a person who likes to play like blood, play with knife and stuff like that, play violent.
This whole plan was designed to a T to kind of cover their tracks.
Basically, like after a while talking to Joe, he said he's the right person. Joe's the right person.
Juliana was the one person who could tell us exactly what Brendan Banfield's role was in it, and we knew him to be largely the hand that was moving the pieces on this particular chessboard.
He just told me, I wish I didn't need you, but I need you to do this with me. I can't do it without you. And I said, what do you mean? Why you can do it without me? And he said, because something goes wrong, I need you to have my back.
Can you tell me the words that he used in terms of how he intended on killing her?
Like stabbing her?
Did he say where he intended on stabbing her, how he intended on stabbing her?
Yeah, he was going to stab her on the neck, just like he did. He was just expecting Joe to bring a pointy knife instead of, the knife to like chop vegetables, which would be easier.
So what did Joe Ryan say during the time when Brendan Banfield comes in?
He looked at us like surprised, like shocked that there were other people in the bedroom. And then that's when Brendan just shot him.
Hearing Juliana describe Christine's last moments was absolutely gut-wrenching. She is describing the moment a mother lost her life.
He was stabbing her and then she was just telling him, let me go, I'm gonna die anyways. I'm gonna bleed to death. She was just, leave me here, let me die. And then he was telling her, I can't.
This is pretty heartbreaking stuff. Juliana even tells prosecutors that Christine, while she's dying, is talking about her daughter's birthday coming up. She's about to turn 5.
She said something about birthday because it's going to be the next month in March. Based on him, like, it has to be before birthday. Why?
I can only imagine that her last thoughts were of her daughter. Sorry, that's all right.
Juliana accepts a plea deal and ultimately agrees to plead guilty to involuntary manslaughter. And on top of that, prosecutors say they will recommend a sentence of time served, meaning no more prison time, and she'd be immediately deported back to Brazil.
Which means as soon as this trial is done, she's free, as long as she testifies against Brendan Banfield in his trial.
I don't know where the justice in that is. How do you get to plan a murder and think that you're gonna live a life, her life essentially, and walk away after a couple years?
In less than 12 hours, the trial of Brendan Banfield will get underway.
It's been nearly 3 years since the murders. The case is finally headed to trial. And the defense is about to make the argument that nothing is what it appears to be. Even the police can't seem to agree on exactly what happened here.
There was a divide amongst investigators.
Our supervisor at the time told us there were 2 theories in the case and we needed to get behind the right one.
While awaiting trial, Brendan Banfield is indicted on 2 more felony charges.
Prosecutors file another indictment, charging him with felony child cruelty and felony child abuse.
And this is because he had this remarkably intricate plan to kill his wife and did it with his daughter in the house.
Brendan Banfield pleads not guilty to the additional charges, too. The investigation is ongoing, and something unusual is playing out. Detectives are divided on whether this catfishing theory is even legit.
Brendan Miller is a forensic investigator within the police department that is investigating Brendan Banfield.
This is a man who looked at every cell phone, every laptop in the Banfield home.
He wrote a report associated with this case. The key line and conclusion in Biller's report is that there's no indication at any point in time that Christine lost control or contact with her own devices.
So if Christine always had control of her devices, then the whole theory of the case falls apart.
After Brendan Miller releases this report to law enforcement, he's removed from this case and transferred to another section of the detectives unit.
It created this atmosphere that, like, maybe police want to find facts to fit their theory, not go where the facts lead them. It raises the question, could Christine have actually set up this profile? Did she really invite Joseph Ryan to the house?
In less than 12 hours, the trial of Brendan Banfield will get underway. Banfield is the man accused of killing his wife and another man in an effort to run away with the family's au pair.
The judge who's presiding over the case is Penny Ascarate. She's a former Marine, she's a no-nonsense judge. She is familiar to the people who saw the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial.
Jurors in Depp and Amber Heard's multi-million-dollar defamation trial are taking their time.
In opening statement, the goal is really to introduce the jury to the story that's going to be told.
Brendan Banfield killed his wife, Christine Banfield, and another man named Joseph Ryan. And he convinced young Juliana, 22 years old, that they should get rid of Christine. They would use Christine's email accounts to create a fake profile, to lure someone in to come into the house and fake rape Christine. Brendan would be the hero of the day. He would show up, kill the guy, kill his wife, pretending that it had been that guy. That was the plan.
Banfield's defense attorney, John Carroll, says that Juliana cannot be trusted because she's testifying for her life.
The whole reason she was arrested was to flip her against my client.
He moved on to say that the prosecution's case rests on this idea that there was some sort of catfishing scheme.
But yet, one of the critical detectives, the forensic examiner in the case, the original one, said, no, that's not right.
And so then started the turmoil within the police department. You're going to see manipulation within the police department where if homicide detectives didn't agree with this theory, they were transferred.
Early on in the prosecution's case, the jury hears the 911 calls.
I need help. My friend, she just was stuck in the night now. She's bleeding a lot.
Brendan is sitting at the table, crying.
There's somebody here. I got him.
The best way to tell this story was to put the good evidence out in front. And Juliana was our best evidence. She was our storyteller. We called Juliana to the stand the first day.
She needs to deliver. This is a big moment.
As Juliana walked past Brendan, his eyes tracked her.
Brendan tried to connect with her, lock eyes with her. Juliana didn't give him a second glance.
Do you swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you. Now you can have a seat. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We had her first describe how her relationship with Brendan had developed.
When you first met Mr. Banfield, what was your relationship to him?
It's professional. He was my boss. Brendan and I barely spoke at all.
At some point, did your relationship with the defendant change?
It became sexual.
Did he ever talk about his relationship with his wife, Christine Banfield?
He used to say that she didn't seem to care about where he was, what he was doing. She didn't seem to care about him at all.
Juliana testified that divorce was not an option for Brendan, primarily because he would lose custody or have to share custody of his daughter with his wife.
Did he tell you what he wanted to do?
He mentioned his plan to get rid of her.
The trial is now at a critical point. Jurors are on the edges of their seats because Juliana is about to tell the jury what she says happened in that bedroom.
She was extremely nervous, but she wanted to tell the truth.
When I first saw that happening, I was just crouching down, covering my ears and covering my eyes.
And now to more stunning revelations from the double murder trial playing out in Fairfax County.
Juliana Perez Magalhaes is still on the stand on direct examination, and she tells the jury that when Brendan first talked to her about killing his wife, she didn't take him seriously.
At first, I thought he was joking. He had heard of a website called Fat Life.
Were you present when he created the FetLife account?
Yes, he created a new email account for Christine in Christine's name.
Juliana explains that as a part of this plan, Brendan creates this profile, this Anastasia 9.
How did the two of you use her laptop without her knowing about it?
Every time she was to get home from work, she threw her backpack by the door. In the backpack was her laptop.
Joseph Ryan was really just one out of many, many people that they spoke to, and the only one who was willing to follow the rules. Joe Ryan didn't need to meet in advance. Joe Ryan was happy to come to a house that he didn't know. Joe Ryan was willing to come at odd hours, specifically this early morning meetup.
He made Brendan feel confident enough that he would be the person to play the role and come over to the house.
She goes on to say that she and Brendan were so determined to make sure that this meeting was going to happen that she jumps on a call with Joe Ryan, pretending to be Christine.
As soon as I said hi, he was surprised that I had an accent.
Juliana testifies that February 24th arrives, the day that this plan was supposed to be executed. She wakes up early, preparing the 4-year-old daughter for this fake trip to the zoo.
She testifies that Christine had the day off and wanted to sleep in.
According to Juliana, that morning Brendan messaged Joe Ryan with Christine's phone and then shut the phone off and put it in a drawer. And he left and went to McDonald's, where he was going to wait for her call.
What, if anything, did he give you in that morning before the two of you left?
Gun.
Juliana's plan that morning was for her to take the child, to get into her car, and to wait in the cul-de-sac until she saw Joe Ryan arrive.
The zoo was the cover, and as part of that, she was going to bring some lunches that she packed and left in the refrigerator so that she would have a reason to be loitering outside in the cul-de-sac.
That's when I saw Joe pulling in the driveway, and I called Brendan. He told me he would be coming home.
Juliana testified that when Brendan got back to the house from McDonald's, the two of them left the cars, bringing the child with them.
And then the three of them went in the back of the house, left the little girl in the basement, and went upstairs.
He took his gun out. I just did the same. I just followed him to the master bedroom.
Juliana goes on to say that she and Brendan burst into the bedroom and find Joe Ryan there with Christine.
And she yelled back at Brendan, saying, "Brendan, he has a knife." That's when Brendan first shot Joe. Brendan ran to Christine. She told me, "Juliana, call 911."
She testified that in the moment when Christine shouted, "Juliana, call 911, she instinctively did it.
And that's where you have our very brief recording in which you hear Joseph Ryan moaning in the background.
County 911, where's your emergency?
Brendan looks at me and just hung up the call.
Well, the police theory is that the scene wasn't ready yet for the police to show up. Brendan needed time to stage it.
He got on top of her, and that's when I first saw him stab her with a knife.
Juliana testified Brendan picked up the knife that Joe Ryan had brought to the house and that he began stabbing Christine. Juliana turned away. She said that it was hard to watch. She testified that Joe moved and that she told Brendan that he was moving.
That's when I fired the shot too.
So she shot him. Just shot him.
The defense definitely had a strategy when it came to Juliana, trying to give the jury a motive for why this witness is lying.
On cross-examination, the defense attorney asked Juliana why she waited so long to cooperate.
The feeling of shame and guilt, and also because I had a potential of getting less time.
When the defense tried to get Juliana to lay out some of the details of this plan, many times she just said, I don't know.
Who took the laptop from wherever it was that Christina thought it was?
That day, I do not remember. I can't tell you for sure. I can tell you the date.
I mean, with all due respect, you don't remember a lot of details.
Yeah.
And that's what's really concerning about this.
And I'm telling you that I do not recall.
Juliana has really damaged Brendan with her testimony, if she's believed. So the big question now is, will Brendan Banfield take the stand?
Anytime a defendant wishes to testify at trial, there's a hold your breath moment. Is this really a good idea? But at the same time, it was exciting.
All right, call Brendan Banfield.
It's been 4 days of testimony, more than a dozen witnesses, and the prosecution is resting its case. Now, time for the defense.
As John Carroll begins his case, the argument is that the prosecution and law enforcement had blinders on.
We had a briefing within the first week. Our supervisor at the time told us there were two theories in the case and we needed to get behind the right one.
The internal politics that John Carroll introduced to the trial were complete distraction efforts. One of the theories we were examining was that Brendan was telling the truth. So we examined a ton of theories, but ultimately we're examining the evidence.
The defense called Detective Brendan Miller as their own witness. He's the forensic examiner who wrote the report concluding that Christine, in his opinion, always had control of her devices.
Did you make any conclusions at that time that she had not given up her devices?
I had nothing indicating loss of dominion and control at that time.
So your conclusions based on zeros and ones are still the same?
Yes.
The defense calls their own expert to basically verify or agree with Miller's original conclusion.
Were you able to draw any opinions related to this case?
Catfishing did not occur. I didn't see anything here that indicated loss of control of device.
The digital forensic evidence was simply inconclusive because Brendan Banfield had been so careful in his planning. You could never point to one person as being the sole operator of the device at the time that the messages were sent.
And you can't say who was in control of either device. All you can tell us is what the devices are doing. Correct?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Banfield, do you understand you have a constitutional right not to testify?
Yes, ma'am.
Anytime a defendant wishes to testify at trial, there's a hold your breath moment.
All right, call Brendan Banfield.
This is a big moment. Brendan Banfield has not spoken to police. He has not shared his story. Now he's about to take the stand, talking for the first time.
Brendan Banfield does this defense that we call, my hands are dirty but not bloody, because he's saying I've done some bad things.
We were having an affair.
Now, was Christine aware of your affair?
I don't believe she was aware of the affair between me and Juliana. She was aware of at least 2 previous affairs.
So Brendan stays on the stand over 2 days, and he told jurors that he's had affairs in the past. He admitted to it, but he said his wife has also had affairs in the past.
There was a point a number of years ago that Christine had indicated that she was interested in bondage type situations.
In terms of your sexual relationship with Christine, what, if any, differences did you have?
I was not interested in ever harming her. I was never interested in sexual violence.
In our detective's examination of Christine Banfield's digital life, there was absolutely no evidence of her having been involved or even interested in rough sex.
Christine never mentioned to me anything about any affairs. I would be the one she would share it with, and there was never any secrets.
Did you ever create any sort of a plan with Juliana?
No, there was no plan. I think that it's an absurd line of questioning.
Regarding the day of, Brendan had an explanation for the jury.
Brendan testifies that when he pulls up to the house and sees this strange car, he doesn't call 911 right away because he says that he thinks maybe his wife is having another indiscretion.
It wasn't on my mind that this was some type of violent or threatening encounter. I was emotional at that point.
Brendan says that he enters the house through the basement door, and then he sees Juliana and his daughter behind him.
I never told her to come down to the house.
Brendan leaves Juliana and Banfield's daughter in the basement.
He goes upstairs and into the bedroom.
Christine was nude and on all fours, and Joe Ryan was behind her. I don't know that I've ever been more panicked in my life. Almost immediately, I said police. I saw him do a downward stabbing stroke, and that's when I fired at him. Christine told me that she was bleeding out, and that she was sorry and that she loved me.
Brendan notices that Juliana is now in the bedroom with him.
I told Juliana to call 911. She went into the master bathroom.
Brendan says that while he's tending to his wife, he feels something on his back.
Joe Ryan struck me in my shoulder.
All of a sudden, a gunshot.
And I looked up and I saw that Juliana had my other firearm. I was stunned that Juliana had shot.
As John Carroll is finishing his direct examination of Brendan Banfield, I'm ready.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination?
There were a number of things that I wanted to push on.
He's asked, well, you know, you've explained a couple of stab wounds. She had 7 stab wounds.
When did he stab her those other 5 times?
The knife is inside of her hair. I can't tell the movement, and I don't know exactly what happened before I arrived either.
Okay, well, she had to get 5 more wounds at some point.
Prosecutors are hammering away at Brendan, and they press him on his story that Christine was awake and on her devices on the morning that she was killed.
Would it surprise you if the digital forensics would show that she was not on her phone at 6:30 or really any time before or after that?
I saw her with her phone. Okay. It was on the bed.
Got it. Okay, so she was just with the phone, not using the phone.
Yes.
The prosecutor is really questioning Brendan's behavior. He sees Juliana in the basement, with his daughter, doesn't tell her, go back to the car.
Why wouldn't you tell the babysitter to take your daughter back outside?
I believe that she was safe in the basement. I thought they were okay there.
Common sense. I mean, what we know of how people behave just never made sense with what Brendan Banfield had done.
Thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
The jurors now have heard 2 vastly different versions of what happened.
Each of you must decide this case for yourself. I can excuse you now to deliberate.
Please be seated and come to order.
The case has gone on for 9 days. Now, it's that final moment. Both sides have their final arguments to make before the jury.
Brendan Banfield killed both Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. He was in love with Juliana. He was afraid of losing her. He needed to get rid of his wife so that they could be together. Brendan let Juliana take the fall. It's his turn to be held accountable.
John Carroll argued in closings that Juliana had ulterior motives.
that she wanted to go back to Brazil, and saying what prosecutors wanted her to say was her ticket to going home.
Juliana made it up. She told the Commonwealth what they wanted to hear. She told this lie to secure herself a deal.
He argued that officials rushed to judgment in this case and transferred people out who did not support the conclusion that they had.
The one detective who stood up and said the evidence contradicted her story was transferred off a case.
After both sides have their last words to tell their story, then it's all to the jury.
The fate of the man accused in a high-profile double murder case now in the hands of a jury.
After nearly 9 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict, and everyone rushed into the courtroom.
We turn now to the verdict in the case of that husband and father in Virginia, accused of killing his wife so he could have a new life with his au pair.
We, the jury, in the case of the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Brendan Robert Banfield, defendant, find the defendant guilty of aggravated murder of Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield.
The jury finding him guilty on all counts just a short time ago.
At the end of the day, I am very, very pleased that we are able to stand here successfully having gotten justice for Joe Ryan and Christine Banfield.
Brendan will be sentenced in May, but just days ago, Juliana was back in court, finally learning her fate.
I'm truly sorry for the pain it caused. I hope someday I can be forgiven.
Your actions were deliberate, self-serving, and demonstrated a profound disregard for human life. Therefore, I do sentence you to 10 years in the penitentiary. May it weigh heavily on your soul.
I believe she is equally as responsible for my son's death. She's a cold-blooded killer.
Joe Ryan, for his loved ones, they don't want him forgotten.
I want people to know Joe was a good son, that he loved people, and that he didn't deserve this.
Christine's family has mostly been quiet about the loss, but they just sent us a statement talking about her, saying she loved her family deeply and was devoted to her marriage. Christine suffered a violent, horrific, senseless death. The lies told about her after her murder were just as painful as her death. We are committed to ensuring that Christine will always be remembered as the beautiful person she was.
There's so many things that remind me of her. A Backstreet Boys song will come on. Remembering her laugh. And sometimes I could look at a picture and I hear it because it was a pretty great laugh.
What do you want her daughter to know about her?
How much she loved and adored her.
You have a necklace that she shared with you.
Her daughter had made me this necklace that says family.
Which was sort of the focus of Christine's life.
Her daughter was her absolute world. Her daughter's the reason that she lived every day. She loved her so much.
And that's our program for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
December 31st. The initial announcement from WHO, there was a novel coronavirus found in Wuhan.
There appeared to be 27 people that had this new pneumonia.
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
We were already behind the curve.
There were a number of people raising red flags.
We were talking to everybody that we could find. We all understood that a failure on the federal level would have dire consequences.
Is blood on the hands of the Trump administration? Absolutely. Everybody at the national level, state, local, there's a lot of blood to go around for the lack of response to this disease. We are always at threat for the next pandemic. These viruses exist out in nature. As people go out in nature, they get infected and they move their way back into humans.
If we were to imagine the origins of COVID-19 as a movie, it would begin at the end of the Contagion movie. Exactly that process of bulldozing down the forest, bats flying off, infecting livestock, that then we get infected. That happens every day, every week. That's how these things begin. Man is a major hub on the wildlife trade pathway. It's close to hotspot areas for new coronaviruses.
Ever since the COVID pandemic hit, we've been trying to determine if anybody knew anything about a contagion sweeping through Wuhan last fall, and when did they know it.
Researchers looked at satellite photos of Wuhan hospitals in October of 2019, and what they show are packed parking lots. All those red dots are cars. And we took those photos and we put them next to October of 2018, mirror images, and you can clearly see in some cases there are 50 to 90% more cars. That shows that those hospitals were busy during this time. Then they found another clue when they looked at Baidu. That's the Google search engine for China. During this time, there was an increase in searches for terms like cough and diarrhea, two symptoms of COVID-19. Now, this is 3 months before China announces that they have a problem with the coronavirus. Clearly, something was happening in Wuhan.
On the 29th of October, we flew to Wuhan to start the river part of the cruise on the Yangtze. We were very excited, and we had not ever been to Wuhan. At the time, it seemed weird. The treatment of us on this particular city was different than other cities we'd been in on this tour. We're lined up to get onto the ship. They really emphasized, stay in line, you don't have time to go wander anywhere. And once we were on the ship, nobody was allowed to get off. Having 150 Western tourists from UK, Australia, Canada, United States get sick and trace back to Wuhan might have not been a good idea. We were immediately told that we would be leaving, and bing, bang, boom, we were gone.
3, 2, 1,
So I was at home with my wife and a couple of friends. We were cooking a dinner and celebrating the New Year's.
I was snuggled on the couch with my sons, watching the ball drop in New York.
They say close to 1.5 million people have gathered here tonight.
It was the first time in a long time that I had an opportunity to get my whole family back together. And I did get a phone call from my colleagues at CDC that there was a mysterious new pneumonia that appeared not to be flu.
You have a brand new virus that's jumped species from an animal to a human.
And immediately that was an alarm bell.
It was clear the threat was real, the threat was serious.
On New Year's Eve, if someone had told me a pandemic was coming, that wouldn't have surprised me. The world was overdue, for one. And that's what's always kept me up at night.
It is the perfect storm and my worst nightmare.
The end of 2019 into 2020, the Trump White House wasn't focused on a global pandemic, but frankly, nobody was in Washington.
We do have breaking news tonight. President Trump has just been impeached on both.
First of all, the president had just been impeached. We were going into an impeachment trial.
Quite frankly, we were focused on Iran that first week.
The stunning sight, millions of Iranians taking to the streets, demanding revenge for the killing of their top military leader.
There is a lot going on that is consuming all attention, the president's attention, the Democrats' attention in Congress, the military's attention, beyond a global pandemic.
Chinese health authorities are still working to identify the virus behind a pneumonia outbreak in the central city of Wuhan.
There were reports of unexplained pneumonia cases in Wuhan, China. There were images emerging of people in hazmat suits spraying down a seafood market. It kind of gave me a bit of a chill.
Reading about people being locked into apartment buildings, streets being closed off, entire cities being cordoned, that is a signal of how serious this pathogen was.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Have a great year.
As we ring in the new year, President Trump is in Florida at Mar-a-Lago.
We wrote up our first situation report on January 1st. I had my first meetings to discuss this with the National Security Council on January 2nd.
What's not publicly known is that behind the scenes, in the presidential daily brief, there's information being put in telling the president that there's something strange happening in the Wuhan region of China.
We felt that this had potential to be a very serious situation that had national security implications.
Dr. Redfield at the CDC, he's on the phone with Dr. Fauci.
It was zing-bang back and forth. Both of us agreed that this looks, smells, and almost certainly is a new coronavirus. And the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Is this a pathogen that goes from animals to humans? Or is this a pathogen that went from human to human?
Bob was trying to get information in real time, exactly what was going on over there. The frustration is that he wanted to get his team there and to go to Wuhan and find out what was going on, but the Chinese were not allowing that.
I had strongly suggested that we send some CDC folks in to help out, and the president actually made the request to President of China that we'd be able to come in and assist.
And the Chinese are stonewalling. They're not letting them have access to the key sites.
We had literally, 20, 30 people ready to go.
The fact that they were not allowed to go there in real time and see what was going on was very disconcerting to us.
So on January 8th, the CDC issues its first health alert connected to the pandemic.
And President Trump heads to Ohio, where he holds this big rally.
Make America great again.
No, the president didn't publicly predict any danger.
And America's future has never, ever looked brighter. Never.
In early January, China hasn't released the genome or the genetic map of the virus.
You need the genome of the virus to develop tests and drugs and vaccines, and there were significant delays in sharing it with the world.
On January 12th, the Chinese government, after resisting American requests for information, releases the genetic sequence of the virus.
All right, all hands on deck. We got to make a vaccine because we don't know where this is going. There's a lot of unknowns.
It was just a matter of time before it arrived in the United States. To think otherwise would be completely naive.
Update 180, maintain 5,000, still thousand, localized, cleared ILS, and I want 6 approach.
On January 15th, a man landed at the Seattle airport.
He was in his 30s, no pre-existing medical problems. He traveled to visit family in Wuhan, China.
He took a rideshare car home from the airport, and right away, the next day, he started feeling sick.
After a few days of feeling poorly at home, he came to one of our clinics. He basically said, I've recently traveled to Wuhan. I've got a cough and a fever, and I'm concerned I might have coronavirus. They contacted the local health officer who recommended testing. They also involved the CDC to run the case through them. At that point,
We were not allowed to test at state public health, and local public health departments were not able to test either. So if we wanted a patient tested, we had to first receive approval or clearance from the CDC. We had to make a case that the patient met their very strict criteria.
So patient 0, his sample had to be flown overnight to the CDC lab in Atlanta, and he was told to quarantine. He was sent home.
It was a big surprise when we got the call.
The test was positive. It was January 20th. Patient 0 had been identified, and now officially COVID-19 was on American soil.
President Trump is at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he answers for the first time on whether he's worried about the growing pandemic in China.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
I never thought it would be just fine, because I didn't think we were doing what was necessary to make it just fine.
The administration were still saying this was a problem overseas.
This is a serious health situation in China, but I want to emphasize that the risk to the American public currently is low. I think in January and February, there was a sense that we still had this under control.
January was really our opportunity as a country to contain this virus before it spread like wildfire. And that opportunity was missed.
At this point, COVID-19 is on American shores. Question is, was there a plan for the federal government to deal with the pandemic? And it turns out that successive administrations previously had already laid the groundwork for pandemic response.
You know, President Bush deserves a lot of credit for what he did in 2005.
In August 2005, President Bush goes to Crawford, Texas, to his ranch for what is supposed to be a long vacation. And he reads a book about the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic by John Barry. And it freaks him out.
Sometime prior to the spring of 1918, an animal virus killed between 50 and 100 million people.
And he sees Barry talking about how these pandemics happen every 100 years or so. You have something massive like this. And he's looking at the calendar.
We'll hear all of us soon.
President Bush knows personal experience that things he did not anticipate can happen and can cause severe damage and kill a lot of people. 9/11, Katrina, could the next big one be a global pandemic?
By then, we'd already had the SARS experience, and then so-called bird flu, which was pretty scary. That's a pretty good reason to get your attention.
He challenged us to come up with a government-wide, national, not just federal government, strategy for dealing with it should it happen.
The President of the United States.
They get Congress to appropriate money, real money, $7 billion behind this plan.
If we wait for a pandemic to appear, it will be too late to prepare. One day, many lives could be needlessly lost because we failed to act today.
So there was a robust national response. As with all outbreaks, we got the periodic increase in interest in public health, infectious diseases, health security, and then eventually interest would wane, and then you see a decrease in funds. So it's a usual bust and boom cycle for public health, unfortunately.
Tonight, outbreak, a new and deadly strain of flu.
The Obama administration has to deal with an outbreak almost immediately after Obama becomes president.
Every American should know that their entire government is taking the utmost precautions and preparations.
It's dealt with pretty quickly. And you go back to the cycle of complacency. There are other problems that are more pressing. But 5 years later, 2014, Ebola.
An outbreak of a disease so fierce, so deadly, even the word strikes terror.
This scares the hell out of everybody.
President Obama and Vice President Biden have authorized an unprecedented whole-of-government response to the Ebola crisis. And the good news is that we're starting to see some results from that. When I was winding up my work on Ebola, I met with the president and said to him, we need to build a permanent structure at the White House.
The funding we're asking for is needed to prevent and deal with future outbreaks and threats before they become epidemics.
And he set up a pandemic prevention office in the National Security Council to get us ready for that more deadly, more dangerous more rapidly spreading epidemic that was going to come to this country someday.
Donald Trump takes office. He has some people in his national security apparatus who served under President Bush, who see this also as a significant issue.
More turnover in this White House than any other administration in recent history.
The challenge is when you have had as many turnovers in this administration, a lot of that work that would have been done during the transition has been lost.
But eventually, President Trump's third national security advisor, John Bolton, decides to do away with the section of the National Security Council that specifically deals with pandemics, just eliminates it.
Now, the Trump administration says they were just streamlining the National Security Council and that some of those staffers were reassigned but continued to work on the issue of pandemic preparedness.
It's not like the government stops worrying about a global pandemic, but make no mistake, at this point, this is not a major priority in the Trump administration.
One thing that the Obama administration left was a pandemic playbook. And on page 9 of the pandemic playbook, it said, hey, here's something to worry about, a coronavirus. I don't know if the Trump administration didn't pay attention to the playbook. I don't know if they didn't read it. What we do know is they didn't run the plays in that playbook. It would have made a big difference if they had.
What's eerie about an outbreak, every outbreak I've run, is that in the beginning it's always quiet.
In February, the country was going along its way.
On February 1st, the Surgeon General even tweeted, "Roses are red, violets are blue. Risk is low for the coronavirus, but it's high for the flu."
February 1st, President Trump, he's at Mar-a-Lago.
He's playing golf. He's hosting a Super Bowl party.
The first thing he does in February is that he bans travel to and from China.
The U.S. is closing the door to slow the spread of novel coronavirus.
And he then goes on to basically brag about it on Fox News.
Coronavirus, how concerned are you?
Well, we pretty much shut it down coming in from China.
It was a good idea to do travel restriction from China because it was clear that that's the source that was seeding us.
The truth is that travel ban was probably already too late when it was put into place.
And the world didn't know it, but the virus had already jumped continents because of that commerce very early on.
As February develops, the president proceeds to downplay the virus.
You know, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat.
But behind the scenes, a group of people, current and former senior federal government officials, top doctors, are engaged in a series of email chains called Red Dawn.
I had seen the movie, yes, a pretty good, cheesy 1980s classic.
Wolverines! Our group has been referred to as the Wolverines. You know, I guess we're the group in the movie that saved the United States.
These signs were out there pretty early, and the surprise to us was that folks weren't learning this out of the official channels that should have been broadcasting that information. On my email, some Pentagon officials had essentially written off this pandemic as a bad flu. And so this was my somewhat tongue-in-cheek response to that. And I described Napoleon's retreat from Moscow, just a little stroll gone bad, Pompeii, a bit of a dust storm, and Wuhan, just a bad flu season.
The Red Dawn group ultimately becomes fixated on a cruise ship in the Far East, the Diamond Princess, because of an outbreak of the coronavirus on board.
Today, 70 new cases of the virus have been confirmed on board the ship.
Reading from the Red Dawn email chain, which Dr. Carter Metcher noted, the case count aboard that cruise ship is now up to 136. This is unbelievable. We're so far behind the curve.
So the Diamond Princess was one red flag amongst a sea of red flags at that point of what we should have been doing as Americans to be prepared. As you know, in those early days, we still had not ramped up testing in the United States.
When there's a new pathogen like this, you know, the CDC sets out to develop a test.
That's routinely what we do, and we do it very well, which they did, and they did it in record time, 7 to 10 days.
And initially, we were all flooded with relief. We can test.
And they immediately came across a problem.
The initial samples that came from the CDC that was sent out didn't work, so they had to call them back.
And so the CDC then had to send out a second batch of test kits, which also had a problem. And as the weeks ticked by, we were running out of time to contain the spread of this virus, and we knew it.
It took us about close to 4 to 5 weeks to figure out the contamination, and within 5 weeks, we got the test to the health departments throughout the nation, which I would still say is pretty record time.
In an outbreak scenario, every day matters. Our chances to contain this virus were gone.
We could have brought in the gigantic manufacturers of diagnostic tests, and our failure to take that approach with a homegrown test out of CDC has cost us lives.
I don't think CDC will manufacture tests in the future. I think what we'll do is we'll contract a manufacturer to manufacture the tests.
This was pretty much the most critical time in the outbreak for us to be flying blind. The virus was seeding America, and sadly, lives were lost.
On Valentine's Day weekend, I was part of a number of square dance of events where I and many others contracted COVID-19. If we had known, we could have taken some precautions, or we might have been able to cancel, or we might have done something different. Within 2 weeks, the first person in the square dance community would be dead. It was a very sad time, and it still is, because these people were good people, and they were my friends, and they were taken from us.
By the middle of February, the federal government was only processing about 100 COVID-19 tests a day. Meanwhile, alarm bells are ringing all around the world.
So far, 454 cruise passengers have been infected.
And then as February developed, President Trump held a series of campaign rallies.
I think it's going to work out fine. I think when we get into April and the warmer weather, that has a very negative effect on that.
Near the end of February, some of the testing becomes more available.
The CDC began to ship out the new version of the test.
In Kirkland, Washington, Dr. Francis Rito decides he's going to randomly test 2 of his patients. And shockingly, they both come back as positive for coronavirus.
I knew this was the event. This was now the beginning. Everything changed at that point.
And that's when we first started realizing the first community spread that was not related to an identifiable source.
Without a doubt, February was a lost month for this nation's response.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Meanwhile, the CDC is confirming the first COVID-19 death in the United States.
The disconnect between what the president was saying and what we knew to be the science, it was frightening.
Obviously, there was a failure of leadership in dealing with this pandemic, without question.
It was too late. The outbreaks were already out of control. There was no way to stop it at that point. We'd missed our chance to contain it.
There was a parade of ambulances coming from Life Care.
Tonight, coronavirus spreading in the U.S. The death toll now rising.
This disease is running rampage through this facility.
A state of emergency issued in Washington state.
March is the month that we will never forget. That's when the pandemic really hit our shores and things started to explode.
My mom was living at Life Care Center of Kirkland in February of 2020.
Officials in Washington losing patience with the nursing home where most of the fatalities from the coronavirus occurred.
And CDC hadn't shown up on the scene yet to be support. Staff clearly wasn't able to deal with it, and I got a phone call from the nurse saying that Mom had passed.
Doctor said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability. Maybe I should have done that instead of running for president.
There wasn't a lot of urgency, and that's where leadership becomes really critical.
And so we're part of
dealing with this crisis, not leading it at that time, but obviously in support. And it was my belief that this would have to be a bigger response.
If the virus is in China, didn't someone expect that the virus was going to get on a plane and travel? And it did, and it wasn't in China anymore. It went to Europe, and it went to Italy, and it went to France.
Tonight, the World Health Organization declaring it a global pandemic.
The NBA overnight suspending its season until further notice.
Breaking at this hour, the financial markets in free fall, the worst day since Black Monday crash of 1987.
My fellow Americans, to keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
He misstated the nature of the travel restriction. He said he was banning everyone, and that led to a panic. It led to thousands and thousands of people coming back from Europe who didn't need to come back.
People ended up in those crowded hallways for a long period of time, and many were exposed and reportedly have passed because of their exposure waiting and to clear customs.
And by the time we realized Europe threat and shut down travel to Europe, there was already probably 2 or 3 weeks of 60,000 people coming back every day from Europe.
I'm a registered nurse and I work in an emergency department in New York City. There was not enough tests to test everybody that wanted to test.
The U.S. badly trailed the world in March on the testing situation.
The situation with the CDC and the testing had become so extreme that by March 13th, on the Red Dawn email chain, Dr. James Lawler sounded the alarm. How are you supposed to know when you have community transmission, when they haven't been able to provide a diagnostic assay that can be used widely and at high volume?
We were talking to everybody that we could find to communicate why we were concerned and what we thought we needed to be doing as a nation.
We always knew that there were a lot more cases out there than we were diagnosing. 23% of people in New York City have antibodies. So a quarter of New York City was infected with this virus.
It was inevitable that this novel coronavirus would show up in New York City. What they didn't expect was that it would be transmitted silently in the population, and then they had no tests.
Anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests, and the tests are beautiful.
It's not true, because tests are physical objects. We can count them. We didn't have enough.
When the pandemic first began, I chose not to stay home because my bills still had to be paid, and I'm a grocery worker, and that's what I do.
What was needed was a way to make essential work safer. Estimates are that something like 40% of the workforce continued working. Essential workers were at the end of that long line.
Everybody wanted to know, hey, how can I get tested? Where can I get tested?
March 12th, I get put in charge of testing. It had been decided at some point in time, not in this administration, that test supplies were not going to be part of the stockpile. So when I looked to see what was there was nothing there. There's no game plan. There was nothing.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
Across America, almost 22,000 schools shuttered, forcing 15 million kids to stay home.
Major areas of American life shutting down to stop the spreading coronavirus.
There's images of healthcare workers in other countries that are fighting this virus wearing full-on hazmat bunny suits. Meanwhile, here, we are wearing garbage bags and week-old N95s. I did not feel protected. I did not feel safe.
We need those masks, those gowns, gloves, and we need them now.
One of the things that people don't realize is that the manufacturer of personal protection equipment, or PPE, the majority of that production is offshore, not in the United States.
So we're going to put out an executive order today. New York State on pause.
The Defense Production Act, or DPA, allows the federal government to order manufacturers to produce the supplies needed.
And the calls are growing louder by the day for President Trump to invoke this act. But he was really hesitant to do it.
He's used it 600 times as president. When there's something he wants to do, he's willing to use that power.
And whatever the states can get, they should be getting. I say we're sort of a backup for the states. And Some of the states are doing really well, and some don't do as well.
The president's position was the states were in charge. States, the governors, the governors, the governors. You know, I'm calling China to buy PPE. Every governor is calling China to buy masks, right? It made no sense.
What do we want? PPE! What do we need it? Now! Nurses were getting put on ventilators. We were dying. And what angers me the most, I think, is that these deaths were 100% preventable.
FEMA says we're sending 400 ventilators. Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators. Where's the PPEs? Where are they? President said it's a war. It is a war. Well, then act like it's a war.
Typically, the world production of ventilators is about 30,000 ventilators a year, which sounds like a lot, but when you're in a pandemic, and every country in the world is looking for PPE and ventilators, it doesn't last too long.
So you have 50 states competing to buy the same item. It's like being on eBay with 50 other states bidding on a ventilator.
It should not have been left to each state to figure out what to do. We're all connected. I mean, honestly, this is one nation. We need one response.
The U.S. now has more cases of coronavirus than anywhere in the world. In New York, cases soaring, hospitalizations doubling every 4 days. This packed emergency room at a hospital in New York City, and doctors describing New York hospitals as a war zone.
I had maybe 12, 13 patients, and they were all super critical. They were all dying. And our numbers started to dwindle because nurses started to get sick because, again, lack of PPE.
This is something that has been talked about and warned about and studied and anticipated by experts in Republican and Democratic administrations for years.
Okay, thank you very much. Moments ago, I directed Secretary Azar and Acting Secretary Wolf to use any and all available authority under the Defense Production Act.
Ultimately, he did end up invoking it and forcing some companies to help in this process of making ventilator parts. But at that point, the damage was done. A lot of critics said these ventilators had been needed, and a lot of companies were already, frankly, making them. They didn't need the act to tell them to do it.
And President Trump didn't invoke the DPA for PPE. That was needed the most. And he still hasn't invoked the DPA for that, and it's left essential workers to deal with it themselves.
We're not even at the peak yet. The death toll just keeps rising and rising.
My mom was goofy. Like, she was really fun to be around. March 18th, she woke up, she wasn't feeling well. Her first thought was that it could possibly be COVID. When I went to see her, she looked like she was deteriorating. I spoke with her doctor, and he just pretty much just flat out like, you know, this isn't gonna turn out well. Just hearing those words, like, just put me just in a horrible place. She was 63, and she was healthy. She was healthy.
Local jurisdictions, not the federal government, start noting that they're seeing big racial, ethnic disparities in mortality.
While this pandemic is impacting every one of us, it isn't impacting everyone equally.
The headlines about the disparities were beginning at the end of March.
Among Chicagoans with COVID-19, more than half are African Americans.
70% of all the deaths in Louisiana are of African Americans.
80% of Washingtonians who have died from this disease are African American.
Thank you very much. It's showing up very strongly in our data on the African American community, and we're doing everything in our power to address this challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. It's terrible.
It should not have been surprising. Historically, we do know that Minority populations, low-income populations are at increased risk for exposure during a pandemic. We saw it with Hurricane Katrina. We saw it with H1N1. We published it in 2009 and targeted, tailored interventions to reach the most vulnerable. You don't stigmatize these populations. You enable them to follow the recommendations of staying home.
My administration's closely monitoring the data on the virus's impact on our cherished African-American communities.
The president said he was concerned about this. His task force said they were concerned about this. But I can never get the sense that there was any significant action plan.
Well, the whole thing, from the federal point of view, has been failure to take responsibility.
We put out a civil rights bulletin to make sure that the resources that we delivered to those impacted by COVID-19 was done in a fair way. I think we're pretty proactive.
The role of the federal government in this pandemic is very, very clear who's missing. Leadership that mirrors the diversity of the United States population. When you see that, then we'll probably see different outcomes.
I don't think we've made enough progress in dealing with disparities in health. In order for African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans to respond to any kind of challenge to their health, like a pandemic,
those deaths could have been prevented. And that's the most troubling part.
President Trump just moments ago saying it is time for the next front in this war. It is time to open up America again.
April 16th, Dr. Fauci to stand in the White House briefing room and say, here's the plan for reopening.
You go into phase 1. If you get no rebound, then you go to phase 2. If you have no rebound, you go into phase 3.
The next day, the president's tweeting people to ignore his own experts' plan.
Are you more concerned about the economy? It should be the people first, at all costs.
African Americans are a core part of the essential workforce. I think if the data show that high-income whites were contracting the virus at a higher rate, we would be looking at a different response from government officials across the country.
The reopening, from a health perspective, it was reckless.
problems of leadership can be very dangerous because it affects how everybody else responds.
So with the masks, I'm choosing not to do it.
And I'm not doing it because I woke up in a free country.
President Trump's announcement that he wasn't going to wear one, I think we're still suffering from that.
It's all about freedom.
What you see by the end of April is complete chaos.
Let us work! Let us work! As coronavirus cases in the U.S. approach 1 million, more states rolling out plans to open up.
When you mix science and politics, you get politics. You're going to get deaths that could have been avoided.
My dad was a first-generation Mexican-American who grew up in the cantaloupe fields. May 15th was when Arizona officially opened up. So my dad, in listening to the advice of people in charge, thought it was safe for him to resume normal activities. On June 11th, my dad woke up with extreme exhaustion, a cough, and a fever. Mark Anthony Urquiza passed away on June 30th. His death is due to the carelessness of the politicians who continue to jeopardize the health of brown bodies through a clear lack of leadership, refusal to acknowledge the severity of the crisis, and inability and unwillingness to give clear and decisive direction on how to minimize risk. If we really want to address structural racism in this country, we need to get real with ourselves about the impact that coronavirus is having on these communities.
Things that we can do now is to try and concentrate resources, testing capabilities, access to care. When we get out of this, we've got to do something about the social determinants of health. That's a long-term problem that we should make a long-term goal.
The man who died while in Minneapolis police custody is George Floyd.
That case
exploded into the national consciousness. Thousands of people taking to the street.
We go from this disease is making you not be able to breathe, into him hollering on that street that he can't breathe. So, and then you look at the climate of the country, I'm saying, look at the correlation.
We essentially had awareness of two sort of important public health events simultaneously. The virus, which we'd been experiencing, and the racial pandemic that was with us all along.
We got hit by the virus that came from China. And we've made a lot of progress. Our strategy is moving along well.
When you open, you have to open safely, right? And we never, ever got this right. We now have the greatest public health failure in our nation's history.
"99 days after the CDC made its mask recommendation. President Trump wearing a mask in public for the first time.
Florida now has more new cases of coronavirus daily than most countries in the world.
There is a very heated debate underway across this country about schools.
Deaths from the virus now climbing in 27 states as nearly half the country either pauses or reverses reopening.
July is only half over, but it's already been the worst month for coronavirus cases in the U.S.
The story this summer is February and March in the Northeast has become July and August in the Sun Belt, in particular in Florida, in Georgia, in Arizona.
We have made missteps. People are dead because of those missteps.
We were late to the game. The virus had taken hold in the country. There was a lot of lost time.
It's a very challenging thing, the missed opportunities that ultimately led to the deaths.
We've just experienced a systemic failure. We really need to figure out how to prevent this from ever happening again.
In order for every American to participate in the solution, they have to first understand the reality of the threat that we're facing.
Even if we can't seem to get it right in Washington, I would love to see the American citizens come together and say, we're going to fight this. We're going to be united in how we approach this disease.
The current state of affairs is not our destiny. We can get this disease under control using strategies that have been used all over the world successfully. So message number one, mask on, okay? Anytime you're out in public, wear this thing.
It may take sacrifice, but now is the time for sacrifice.
The biggest challenge we face is leadership. The way you tackle a pandemic is by listening to your public health leaders. We're seeing the opposite of that.
Receiving mixed messages from different elected officials is confusing.
It's been a roller coaster, really. In some ways, we're going through the cycles of grief continuously.
If we don't get this under control, we're just going to continue to see these surges and hopscotching across the U.S.
The United States is currently spiking in cases, and the cost of that is human lives.